Ochieng is reported to be among hundreds of protesters who were protesting the disappearance of 31-year-old Brian Odhiambo, who was allegedly abducted by KWS officers.
Hii Nakuru National Park iko kwetu Kivumbini Manyani, unaona imesurround hivi. Waamue hata sisi kama society au vile tunavua juu wanatusumbua, vile tunavua watu 50 watupe kazi. Tuache tu kutusumbua. Enyewe babuni zao zinatusumbua huku nje, nyatuui. Ngiri zinatoka zinaishi huku nje na sisi hatuui. Ona. Mimi nasikia vibaya. Ona mulike ni mguu, amenimalizia mguu. Mimi niko na familia na mtoto mdogo.
Sasa leo tukakutana pale vijana. Mapolisi wakawa wamemwaga pale chini kwenye fence pale penye mlikuja jana kuonesha nini Brian alichukuliwa hapo ndo tulienda maandamano rudishe wapi Brian pale. So unajua ile kati ya polisi na raia lazima, kwa sababu wako na sheria zao, sisi ni tunataka mambo yetu. Sasa unaona ile utofauti kukakuwa na ile vurumai kidogo, kukakuwa na ile protest. Sasa wakati wa protest unajua kuna paka watoto pale wanapiga tu live bullet, paka zingine zilikuwa zinachapa mchanga, unaona mchanga inalipuka hivi, nyingine paka imechapa ukuta ikalia kama chuma. Sasa within that process ndo ndugu yetu hapa amepigwa risasi ya mguu.
Mimi na ndugu wangu ndo tunasupport mama yangu. Sasa hii niko bule mimi sina baba. Kwa ndugu wangu ndo tulikuwa tunasaidiana na yeye kusupport my mom. Sasa hii nimebaki hivi solo, mimi ndo kijana mdogo. Mimi ndo kijana mdogo, wameniacha hapo hivyo na mokoro. Sijui nianzie wapi.
The standoff between KWS officers and residents has reportedly been going on for a month now after residents allegedly entered Lake Nakuru and fished illegally. The incident comes amid claims that several bodies were recovered from the lake, with residents believing that the bodies are those of people who have been reported missing in the country under mysterious circumstances. Tension remains high in Msalaba village in Malava, Kakamega County after irate residents descended on the homestead of the Malava Township Sublocation Assistant Chief and set his houses ablaze. The residents accused him of colluding with some villagers to kill two suspected livestock thieves in the early hours of Tuesday. Reports indicate that the residents retrieved the bodies of the two from Malava Hospital before proceeding to the assistant chief's home where they carried out the destruction.
Na nimekutana kwa njia na watu wengi, potapota wanasindikiza pick up ilikuwa na mili mbili. Sasa mimi sikuwa ninajua nini inafanyika. Lakini wakati nimeenda kidogo nikaambiwa hiyo maneno inafanyika kwa shemeji yako. Sasa nikaokopa, hakuna vile ningekucha saa hiyo, na nikatafuta dadangu nikampigia simu, nasikia watu wameenda kwako, wamechoma manyumba. Police were aware that this thing is going to happen, but they took no action.
Kwa leo nimeona kitu ya kuhusunisha sana. Tumekuwa hapa hospitali, watu wawili wameuliwa. Hao watu walikuwa wachuruzi wa ng'ombe na ilikuwa kitu ya kuhusunisha sana. Kidogo kari katoka huko wakachukua hiyo mili, wakakuja naye paka kwa sub chief kwa Poma. Leo tumefika hapa kwa sub chief, wameweka hiyo mili hapo imelala, nyumba zimepomolewa, nyumba imechomwa.
Sisi tuliapitwa ya kwamba hao walikuwa wachuruzi kwanza tu kidambo, na wakaanza kusema tunwezi ni sio wezi, hao ni wachuruzi wa kidambo. Ndio tunashangaa wameuawa, watu wamechukua mang'ombe.
Malava Sub-County Police Commander Paul Mwenda confirmed the attack, issuing a stern warning to residents against taking the law into their own hands and promising further investigations into the matter.
Yuko watu walikuwa wanasindikisha ng'ombe 3 za maziwa saa 9 ya usiku. So njia ya Tumbeni ndio watu wakaweza kuwafahamia. Chief akaita OCS akatuma duty officer pamoja na maaskari, wakaenda wakaokoa ile wachukiwa wawili, wakapeleka hospitali wakiwa wamepigwa na mob injustice. Na mmoja wakati alifika hospitali akawa ameaga dunia, ule mwingine akaendelea kutibiwa, baadaye naye akapoteza maisha. Na uchunguzi already DCI ametake over.
That's the news wire. I'm Lea Ubaga.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Are you a young person looking to unlock your potential? Are you ready to take the future in your hands? If so, then listen up. KCB to Jejiri is the plan. It's designed to empower young people like you, develop skills and knowledge you need to succeed in life. KCB to Jejiri combines vocational skills training, business development training, access to finance and business mentorship, preparing youth for jobs, entrepreneurship and wealth creation. Don't be left out. Visit kcbgroup.com/foundation to learn more.
Are you ready to become Kenya's next biggest music star? Do you have what it takes to compete with the best and walk away with over 1 million Kenyan shillings in grand prizes? Auditions are open for Kenya Star Search on Saturday 1st of February and Sunday 2nd February at the Nairobi City Charter Hall from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come through and show us what you're made of. Proudly sponsored by Skiza, Techno Kenya, Sunlink, Wairimu Kenya and Boomplay.
Good morning and welcome to Wednesday in the middle of the week, and let's take a look at what's happening with traffic this morning as we're getting into it proper and actually not much. We'll probably see a build-up of things as we get to through traffic hour this Wednesday. It's looking all good coming off of Thika Superhighway. You will not get stuck at Survey, at least not now. And at the Pangani Underpass, everything is flowing proper. Coming off of Waiyaki, we're already seeing a little bit of traffic, some junctions, some issues as you go towards Chiromo, but I think we'll be fine from here on out. At least for now. The Southern Bypass looks good. It also looks good on Mombasa Road as you're coming through towards the Cabanas interchange. And off of Mombasa Road itself, coming in all the way from Lolongo out towards Cabanas as well, that looks good. So let's see how Wednesday morning is. It started off right. Let's keep it just so and talk on Spice FM KE on X hashtag The Situation Room.
The Situation Room, broadcasting live every morning on weekdays from the city of Nairobi to the world. The Situation Room with Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice. Dennis Aseto, the man of the moment, and City Muga, the researcher. Join the engaging conversations to energize your day with a blend of trending news, local updates, and thought-provoking discussions coupled with authenticated research.
Now, if you have two advisors advising you on them, and I come to you and you say you know more than I do, just because you sat with them.
Those are the kinds of characters you see here.
Okay.
The world is now beginning to become increasingly many power from the United States.
Not as quick came from them.
You know, CBC assume that every home has electricity, every home has water, every home has internet, and every school has electricity, and every school has internet.
Rising cost of living, it escalated then.
Yes. And some of those even from my own political party, they are saying it openly that they know the cow is dying, but they can see there's still some milk in the udder.
Live calls and listener polls, allowing for a dynamic and inclusive experience. Whether it's the deep underlying facts, trending topics, or light-hearted discussion, and of course the proverb of the day, the host makes sure to start the day with positivity and plenty of energy. The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Good morning. Good morning. You know what? There's somebody who normally sits there, and I just saw her rushing in, trying to pretend as though she didn't see us. Lydiah, good morning. I can see you pretending not to hear me. Lydiah, good morning. Wave, Bass. She has waved. At least. I was not going to allow anything to happen until she says hi to us. I needed a moment. Aseto, good morning.
Good morning, Ndu.
How are you?
Salama nashukuru. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yep.
Mashallah.
Ukoaje?
Mimi niko salama.
Hata sisi tuko fiti.
Where were you guys in there?
Yes.
Okay. How many are you normally? Or like on a Wednesday, it's just Dennis?
Today is Dennis told Aseto.
Bus. Okay. Yes. I normally talk to my guys, but today it's just Ndu.
Ndu.
Well, at least for now.
All right.
We don't know what's going to happen by 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
at least you can embrace your mental health. Sisi, good morning.
Good morning, Ndu.
Mambo vipi? Fiti.
Mambo ni mazuri.
Mambo ni vulai.
Yes, things are good.
Very good. I'm happy to see you. I'm happy to see you guys.
Me too.
I think in this life we don't appreciate each other enough. So this is me appreciating you guys today.
In this life?
Yes, now.
As opposed to which other?
Yonder. When the roll is called up yonder, 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 I'll be there.
Yonder can address.
Yonder
we'll be there. Yonder.
P.O. Box, heavenly.com.
Right.
Sindel.
/.
Thanks. We have to be
foundation.
We have to be AI. No matter what, even going to the other side of things. Good morning, everybody, and karibuni sana. Always good to start the day on this show. Kenya's biggest conversation starts now. A couple of conversations that we have, actually not a couple, because a couple is two. So the few conversations that we have this morning, let me tell you what those are as we get into the day proper. Shall we? Okay. Today at 7 a.m., we will have playing your trump card. I don't think we take that in lightly. We just have Trump having been inaugurated yesterday, and a number of things happened. We'll look into the headlines for that. But playing your trump card, investing in 2025. Our friends from Standard Chartered will be here. Manpreet Gill and Paul Njoki will join us at 7 o'clock. And as we look at, so what can you actually cash in 2025? You want to be around for that one, because obviously January comes and we're skimping and we're looking for coins to be able to make things happen. Well, our friends at Standard Chartered say, look, there is a way, and they'll be here to show us what that way is at 7. All right. Reuben Kagami was a presidential aspirant, and he is a presidential aspirant. He wants to be president in 2027, and he's saying, you know what, there are many things that we can discuss, and I'm going to tell you what I think about abductions, corruption, and the legitimacy of government, what it is and what it should be. So Reuben Kagami joins us at 8. And then finally at 9 o'clock, Dr. Emmanuel Okeleji is the CEO of Seamless HR. AI in a workforce environment. We'll be looking at AI. Artificial intelligence has taken the world by storm. Everything you do, almost everything that you do in the spaces where we work, is now controlled by or contributed to by artificial intelligence. How can you actually use that to maximize your workplace experience? Dr. Okeleji will join us at 9 a.m. So those are some of the things that we'll be talking about this morning. Always thanking you for joining us as we get into the day. So what we'll do right now is we'll take a look at what's happening with the weather, and we can already see you guys streaming in this morning. We will say hello to you. Don't forget to tell us where you're tuned in from, and we'll say a hello to you as we get into it. Good morning. It's 6:14.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with Spice FM.
And the weather this morning in Nairobi, highs of 27 degrees and lows of 15 degrees. In the Kakamega County, highs of 30 degrees and lows of 15 degrees. In Mombasa, highs of 32 degrees and lows of 25 degrees. In Nakuru, Kenya's fourth city, highs of 28 degrees and lows of 12 degrees. In the lakeside city of Kisumu, highs of 29 degrees and lows of 18 degrees. Let's now cross the borders to Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, highs of 32 degrees and lows of 27 degrees. Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, highs of 25 degrees and lows of 8 degrees. And in Mogadishu, highs of 30 degrees and lows of 23 degrees. In London, United Kingdom, highs of 5 degrees and lows of 2 degrees. In Paris, highs of 8 degrees and lows of 2 degrees. That is the weather. These are good morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. And we can see you tuning in. Let's say hello to you, right?
Yes, and we start with Frederick Chaboy. Good morning, Spice. Tuned in from Boston, Massachusetts. Karibu sana. And Chris Maurer, good morning, Spice FM team. Good morning to you. Dr. Ben Vic, Sis in your Tuko, Ndu, CT, and I, Dennis. And R. Tupo, yes, Tupo sana, Karibu sana. Jimmy Munuthi, good morning, Spice. We at Crossroads, politics high, Kenyans very poor. Rents not being paid. Wow. Okay, Jimmy Munuthi, we hear you. And Gilbert Kimuge, hello, the trio, CT. If Farouk can be heckled, then Kenyans are truly tired. Watching from Finland, Tampere.
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 Apparently.
Okay.
I used to say Tampere as well. But apparently it's Tampere. I didn't expect that for a Scandinavian country, with the way their language is formed, that they would pronounce the vowels after a consonant. I didn't.
Okay.
But anyway.
Phonetics for you.
I'm telling you, it's very strange.
I know.
For that kind of language. But anyway.
So it's pretty much like Mbere in Kenya.
Exactly. You would expect it from this side where you have phonetics that are actually pronounced.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so you could say they're phon. Okay.
Okay.
Gilbert Kimuge from Tampere, Finland, and Joe Mungai from Bonny Lake, Washington. It doesn't matter the number of flags the region has. What matters is the leader's sense of responsibility. Ndindi Nyoro is not a minister, yet he's transforming Kiharu. Something to ponder about. And Michael Olande, good morning, or Mwaramutse, as we say in Rwanda. Happy to hear proverbs from Rwanda. Karibu sana. And Pabdi, City, there's a question for you, and I've been asked to ask you. Are you aware that the precursor to Rwanda Patriotic Front, Rwanda Alliance for National Unity, was founded in 1979 in Nairobi, Kenya, by Banyarwanda Tutsi exiles?
No, I didn't know.
Now you know. Yeah, and Kiama Victor, good morning, Spice FM family. It's always a pleasure to start the day with your engaging discussions and vibrant energy. Thank you for keeping us informed and entertained every morning. Karibu sana, Kiama Victor, appreciate that. And Tibbs Muga, good morning, team, engaged total mode. Next 8 years is going to be stressful. And Rogers Nyange, good morning, Spice team, blessed day from the land of beauties, Voi, Taita, Taveta County. And Dominica Buga, good morning, team. The Robert Mboga, good morning from Mombasa. Albert Ambani, good morning, Spice. Mombasa is cold but hot during the day. No Jamit ferry. Kenyans crossing safely, but 3 ferries are crossing instead of 4. Why is there no traffic? Dongo Kundu was opened. Yes. And Robinson Kisero from Hong Kong, sometimes it really hurts to be tied to Party York. ODM has become the worst party that never ruled. Most of the MPs are psychophons and power drunks. I pity Kaluma's remarks yesterday. Thank you, Robinson. At least you watched and listened to what the conversations we're having. Ask City if he has crossed Indian Ocean by ferry. Say hi to Ndu. Have you?
More times than I can count.
Yes. Yeah. Angor, Cham Gamer, beautiful people, a beautiful morning with birds chirping. Siku njema huonekana asubuhi na wapenda sana, tunakupenda pia. Newton Emase, good morning from Nyakach TVC. Bwangi Juma, good morning Spice FM guys, and good morning Spice FM from 001 County Chuda Kiziwi, and good morning Spice. I'll be forced to move out of Nairobi next month. Job in Aisha. Pray for our country. Sarah Yegon, we hope that everything goes well for you. Banadito, good morning from Doha. I still can't believe yesterday in Pikaluma was referring to Dennis as Njugush. Well, fun fact, Njugush and I are actually in the same college.
There you go.
Yep. And Lawrence Gatua, good morning. First time saying hello there, but I'm always listening to the best breakfast show, listening from Busia, Karibu sana. Hello guys, streaming from St. Paul's University. And Daniel Maina, good morning. Tim Spies, J. Bad Hawk, good morning from UAE, Sharjah. And George Ole Pere, good morning. All Spice FM Situation Room from Houston, Texas. We are freezing here, but I am here for the greatest conversation. Karibu sana. And Ahmed, hello, decent has a purpose. Wairimu, and good morning, special people. It's right after dinner for us. Aseto, there's a 16-year-old music major in the room advising.
Can we ask Wairimu? Because we know that Wairimu lives in the Bay Area, in California. How are things now with those fires? Talk to us about that, because it seems to have died down just a little bit. But I mean, the damage and destruction still want to deal with. Wairimu, send us a note about what that looks like, if you don't mind. Okay, sorry.
Yes, and finally, Desmond Ortiz Aseto Berkanyo asante sana. Shikamoo wakubwa from Mombasani, ndio Ethos Mombasa, tukufunze Kiswahili. Kefa Nyakunde, good morning. Spice, watching from Houston, Texas. You guys are doing great in informing us motherland development. And morning, Spice. One of us is missing. Where is Don Sabwa today? Don Sabwa Kwapi, please come and register yourself. And Munene Chanel, good morning, Team Spice, listening from Sydney. And everybody else who's listening, karibuni sana.
Karibuni. All right. L'histoire de Mille Collines. That's where we are. I can see you looking on the city. You will look at me. It doesn't matter. If I have to stand up there and come there, you will still look at me.
I can respond to what you said.
L'histoire de Mille Collines.
Oui.
Okay.
Oui.
Yeah. So what that is, the history of a thousand hills. Of course, we know that Rwanda is a land of 1,000 hills. Really hilly, because you've been there, you've seen it, isn't it? Really, really hilly. Beautiful country. And that's where our proverbs are from this week. What are we doing today?
Yes. The most extensive land is the human belly.
C'est quoi?
The most extensive land is the human belly.
Extensive. I'm trying not to be literal.
What do you think this proverb is referring to?
I don't think it has anything to do with the belly.
Precisely. So what is it referring to?
Something inside you can stretch as much as you need it to.
Yes, I said to take a stab at it. What do you think this proverb is referring to? You exclaimed, now take a stab.
I'd look at it in terms of your dream is as huge as you think about it.
I think that is a good start. In this country, there is a word that we use, and that it's synonymous with everything that is negative. Eating.
Why?
People eat roads.
Oh, I see where
People
you're going.
eat airports.
That's why I say it's not literal, right? But
they eat capitation.
They eat humans. They eat humans.
They eat health facilities.
Yeah. Or they ate our entrance, our gate.
Oh, they eat roads.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's
no stopping the eating, essentially.
That is the heart of the matter, is it not?
Yeah. Yeah. It's as far as you can go, it'll go.
Yes. If there's really no limit to greed.
Shame. Hey, Agola, good morning also to you. Well, let's see what folks have to say about that through the day today. And we can go into the headlines a little bit and see what's there, shall we? Well, I know you're going to give us the headline on The Nation, but there's a state jobs shocker, just for people to whet their appetite with that. But let's talk about chaos unleashed. It's also on the front page of the Standard today. As Americans celebrate the inauguration of their 47th president, the world was left in shock and horror. Okay, and horror is mine. And is yet to recover. It's going to take a minute, I think, after Donald Trump issued 26 executive orders, 12 memoranda, and 4 proclamations that will drastically change lives and upset the world order. And what are those executive orders? One of them being Trump directs US withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement, a move with serious environmental consequences. We know what the Paris Agreement of 2018 is. Essentially, the updated one of 2018, before that 2014, and a few years before that, essentially that all the world's global industrial powers were going to come down a little bit in terms of what they emit into the environment. And they said, well, at least we'll get to this number, but we'll keep it that. Trump has come in again and he said, what? Hogwash. Window where? Paris Agreement?
He's done one better, actually.
He's even gone on to say, and he signed an executive order to withdraw the US from the World Health Organization. Remember during COVID, he was saying this thing, rubbish, this World Health Organization. He comes, signed and said, tunatoka.
But with regards to the environmental thing, Paris Agreement thing, when I say he did one better, he signed an agreement that now unleashes research, drilling into fossil fuels.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to give you that list here. Yes. He declares a national energy emergency to expedite the development of fossil fuels infrastructure and oil drilling. So let's go. He also issues executive order titled Defending Women from Gender Ideology, which recognizes only male and female. All this business of I identify as a porcupine, I identify as the kangaroo's uncle comes to an end. God created male and female. Donald Trump said, you people, I've just been watching you. I came from presidency. I watched my friend president for 4 years, and you people have just come and undone the natural order of things. So that's from the presidential order. Male and female. All this other business that you people are doing, just stop it. Do you understand?
You know, the 4 years ahead of us.
Very, very interesting times ahead. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But you know what? Where the most of the backlash is going to come from? Not people outside. The way we're all saying, Africans will suffer because America is doing whatever. Inside is where the most of the opposition is going to come
Americans are going to speak themselves into smithereens. My friend, this one.
Wait and see. It's going to be very interesting.
Yep.
And where America says they will not do, there are already world leaders who are coming in and say, we will do.
We'll do, yeah.
China. Russia.
My friend, you know, we used to have empires before. And some empires spanned more or less the then known world. They don't exist anymore. And life has gone on, has it not? Yes.
Yeah.
Time. So if America has decided to step down from being the world leader it has always claimed it is, well, so be it. Other people will step in.
Yeah.
And the consequences for this very same America should be interesting to observe.
Indeed.
Very interesting.
Yes, and then there's a little detail of all these things we hear. It's like someone trying to roll back everything that Biden did.
Yes, now.
Now, fuel, next presidential election, these guys are going to be like us. The campaign is going to start now. Yes.
In fact, somebody is already dusting off their whatever in their room and they're saying,
this one.
It is me.
I mean, pretty much what he's done is given his opponent the greatest Mwakenya ever.
The thing is, Trump is also not he's quite an intelligent man, because he knows that this is his last run at the rodeo. He cannot come back, right? And he says, this one, leaving a mark, I will leave indelible. And he's sending a message, and that message is being sent more than anything to Americans and not the rest of the world. So let's see what will happen. We'll look into the details of some of these. Some more headlines. Parastatals to go as cabinet gives its nod. All these many parastatals with the blue number plate, green number plate, whatever. Cabinet said, you people are wasting time, you're wasting money, so please. And cabinet says, actually, yes, we agree. And that's what's on the front page of The Nation when Dennis
Does that article go into details of telling us why it is the method they use in determining this is useful, this one we can reconstruct, this one is outdated?
We shall tell you.
We shall see.
Finally, the Lord has done it, 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 finally. What am I talking about? Finally, the police boss says, I will appear in court. Court, me.
Same WhatsApp group.
Coming.
And
Douglas Kanja said, court ndio mnataka nikuje. I'm coming.
By the way,
just wait
this
for me.
sets in motion something quite interesting. The days of impunity where certain officers who hold high positions, public positions, thinking that they were above the law.
No.
That one has come to an end.
Yes,
because once Brother Kanja goes to court, everybody else must now go to court.
Absolutely.
Yes, like that guy who's playing fiddling with in Nakuru with the hospital and what have you. That guy who just ignored court orders. And that person going to have to go to court, man.
It's major now. Final headline, pro-Ruto MPs. Now, they're pro-Ruto, but they've decided, for me to show that I'm pro-Ruto, I take my fight to where? Gachagua. Figure it out. If I take the fight to Gachagua, I'm showing you as your guy that I'm with you. Sawa.
In this case, Pro-Ruto, from both, it's right now it's a broad-based government. Yeah,
Borani Pro.
Borani Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not Pro-Max. Or Pro-Max is coming soon, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Daily Nation, Ruto's state job shocker. Now, thousands of civil servants countrywide are staring at job losses after the cabinet yesterday approved plans to merge, restructure, dissolve or sell the government-owned firms in a bid to boost efficiency and service delivery while reducing cost and aligning with IMF's budgetary support program. So have we been pushed into this restructuring because of IMF? Something to ponder about. And they've listed about 42 state corporations with the duplicating, overlapping or related mandates that are to be merged into 20 entities. So we are cutting all of these by half. And 189,000 teachers in scramble for 25,000 promotion post. Tutors from across the country send in their applications for 9,179 positions in post-primary schools and 16,109 slots in primary schools advertised by their employer recently. Now, give us teeth to bite. NCIC seek control over peace rallies. In proposals to MPs, the commission wants to be granted powers, including to determine what constitutes a peace-building mission. And at the bottom of the Daily Nation, Femicide, woman and 2 girls murdered. We continue talking about these, and that is Beth Muthoni, 44-year-old, Precious Nderema, 13-year-old, and Ashley Wairimu, 13-year-old. Beth Muthoni's pilgrimage to Tiririka Shrine in Kiambu County on January 16th in search of tranquility and communion with her Creator through prayer ended tragically when she was raped and murdered. In near Kajiado County, the families of Ashley Wairimu and Precious Nderema, both aged 13 and in grade 8, are grief-stricken after the bodies of the girls who went missing after church Sunday were found in a water-filled quarry on Monday and early Saturday. And Trump pardons Capitol attackers after taking office. Now, Donald Trump pardoned about 1,500 of his supporters who attacked the U.S. Capitol 4 years ago as he moved to impose his will on the U.S. government just hours after reclaiming the presidency. Those are the top stories on the Daily Nation.
City?
Let me start with the Business Daily. How Trump order leaves Ruto-Biden deals in limbo. Self-explanatory, isn't it? Sand dealers face a 4 million Kenyan shillings fine for night transportation. So you just transport in the daytime, please. New terms for Carbicide as if it revives BOC buyout. What? I need to read this. Carbicide Investments will be forced to offer shareholders of BOC Kenya fresh terms should it proceed with its protracted bid to buy out its rival. Okay. A TransCentury stock gains 31%. Infrastructure investment firm TransCentury PLC share price rallied by 30.9% yesterday after the firm posted a rare 375 million net profit in the year ended June 2024. Kenya National Bureau of Statistics to separate food, fuel in inflation figures. What do they mean? The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics will from next month separate the price changes for food, fuel, and transport from other consumer items in computing inflation figures in a move aimed at giving more clarity on the cost of living. Okay, we will see, then we will understand. Now, this one is interesting because I don't understand it, but let me read it anyway.
Okay.
Treasury moves to take over T-bills bond from CBK. Why? Public Debt Office to sell government securities in proposed legal changes. The Treasury wants the Central Bank of Kenya stripped of its role in selling bonds and treasury bills on behalf of the government as part of a proposed this is it.
Oh, here we go.
As a part of the proposed reforms aimed at reducing the state's borrowing costs.
Okay. Reducing the state's borrowing costs, not reducing the state's borrowing.
Yes.
That's where the clincher is for me.
Yes. Now, this is the thing I don't understand. That thing which I've read, I don't understand.
Okay. So, tuambie the star alafu tuangalie traffic.
All right. Mount Kenya.
Okay.
Current financial year, Mount Kenya electoral units reaping big under latest NGCDF formula. Page 4 and 5. This one will be subject of a lot of discussion. Makonde's journey to citizenship failed with many twists and turns. The mental health issue is back at us again. This one, a man 29 years old arrested in Huruma Estate carrying body parts. Yes, when they went, okay, let me just read so that you understand. This is a bit gory though. After he was investigated and they went to his residence, they found a head with eyes gouged out and other body parts were found. Now, captive intervene to have KDF soldiers head by Al-Shabaab released, President urged. Then bang in the middle of the paper, 16 parastatals acts out, flip, in route austerity plan.
Do you?
Cabinet approves merger of 42 parastatals into 20 to boost efficiency. Okay, then there's a whole list of state corporations, who, which, why, bam, boom, beam.
I wonder. So now 42 have been collapsed into 20. Does that mean that these 20 now will absorb all the individuals who worked in this 42 completely?
No, they can't.
Or they'll be asked to go home, essentially take early retirement, that sort of thing. So then, if we're talking about austerity, that's where it would make sense. But I imagine the situation whereby you're going to collapse 42 to 20, but you're going to retain all the people, then it's counterproductive. But if you do this, reduce the number of people, then reduce the amount that you have in terms of overheads, then that's when it would make sense to me, because I think there's a lot of duplication of roles from parastatal to parastatal.
What I'd like to find out is if in this report they are going to explain to us, first of all, why it is those parastatals were not doing what they're supposed to do and why it is they were not able to hold their own financially. That we'll need to understand.
And as well as we know that all these parastatals every year sign performance contracting. So in terms of report from that, for them to determine that we are closing these and retaining these should also be made public. Because we don't just sign these things for the sake of signing.
And also, once those parastatals are either dissolved, whether they are outdated, whether they're restructured, I'd like to know what happens to them. And they have assets. What happens to these assets? And the functions that the ones which are completely dissolved, they were set up for a purpose. So that purpose is no longer needed. All these questions arise.
One would assume that you set up a parastatal so that it could do 1, 2, 3. So when you merge it or collapse it into another one, does it lose then its original importance?
And if you dissolve it, because you will find some of the ones which have been declared dissolvable, and look at what they're supposed to do, you wonder, this seems important, so who's going to do this now?
Well, I think we'll look at some of those parastatals and see what it is that they were meant to be doing, and then see now what kind of, effect it would have with its collapse or
Very
its
important.
dissolution. Yep. All right. We'll look into the details of some of those stories when we come back from this. Let's take a look at what's happening with traffic, and then we'll be back after this. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, so what's happening on the roads this morning? Let's take a look at the Thika Superhighway, where not much is happening with traffic, and you'll be able to get into the CBD A-OK. Hunky-dory, no problems. The Northern Bypass giving what? No traffic. And it's coming all the way through to Kiambu Road, where there's a little bit of traffic as you try to access Muthaiga Square from that side, but nothing much. All right, getting onto the area around Waiaki Way, a little bit of traffic as you approach Chiromo, and it's also starting to look a little bit sticky coming in Lower Kabete and Spring Valley. Uhuru Highway all the way through to the CBD this morning looks very good. The Southern Bypass also mimicking its sister, the Northern, on the other side, with no traffic heading into the whole Kikuyu area, into all those many interchanges. Have you been off the Southern Bypass to the interchanges? You could get confused a good one, but okay, another story for another day. For now, it also looks good coming off of the Eastern Bypass as you just cross from the AP Training College Junction. There'll be a little bit of traffic there as you head out towards North Airport Road and then onto Cabanas. So for now, it looks good. Jogo Road, a little bit busy as you get through towards Landis, but Jogo Road around the Makadara train station is where we see a bit of a hold up there. And on Kangunda Road from the jump this morning has been busy. We're going to keep an eye on all of this and wow, it affects Outer Ring. And we will talk, shan't we? Spice FM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
Water everywhere, not a drop to drink. In this case, stories everywhere. Now, which one are we going to consume? So there are many things here. So the Trump season 2 has been given quite a number of pages in the Standard this morning. But just look at some of those stories. Trump's orders draw disquiet and fear of chaos. That what would happen on the global scale? You know what they say? When the United States sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold or pneumonia. In this case, and it looks like that's what it could be. Paris Agreement practitioners are saying, hey guys, what's going on here? And you have a certain number, like for example, Simon Steele, who is the UN climate change executive, says the door remains open. This is a polite way of saying, America, get your act together. The door remains open to the Paris Agreement, and we welcome constructive engagement from any and all countries. We also hear from Stefan Urerik, who is the UN spokesperson, and he says it is crucial that the United States remains a leader on environmental issues. Essentially, we need you to lead by example. Tarek Yarasevi, who is the World Health Organization spokesperson, said, we hope that the United States will reconsider, and we really hope that there will be constructive dialogue for the benefit of everybody. So, yeah, everybody's already starting to pick up their handkerchief because they're getting the cold. His orders draw disquiet and fear of chaos. When US President Donald Trump was sworn into office Monday, he relished the moment, terming it as the commencement of the golden age of America. To millions of Americans, this golden age represents a chance of recreating the American dream, but to millions around the world, the new policies mean unprecedented chaos and an American nightmare. Some Trump orders will unleash unprecedented chaos around the world, disrupting geopolitical and diplomatic arrangements that have taken decades to nurture. The changes will upset traditional foes and friends of the most powerful country in the world. He spent his first day as the 47th president signing into law a slew of executive orders that sought to reverse former President Joe Biden's policies. Key among the orders included that to revoke the attainment of American citizenship by birth. So all of these people who are pregnant now and are saying we're going to America next month in order to give birth so that our baby will have American passport, Trump said, it can never be us. He said, nope, that's not going to be happening anymore. He says also there will be mass deportations for immigrants. This is interesting because like CT always says, the whole country, in the first place, the pilgrims who landed on Plymouth Rock.
Everybody.
Who decided that the turkey was something to eat when they landed on that Thursday morning off some boat coming in from what was England. They're all immigrants. There's nobody that can claim it except for the Native Americans who were there anyway.
Yep. Including the president himself, whose roots come from Germany.
Europe. Yes. So what are we talking about? So now you want to mass deport your people?
No, they are better immigrants than the other immigrants, you know. Yep.
So we continue. He's also saying they're pulling America out of the World Health Organization because from the days of COVID, he said, this is a corrupt bunch of people. And he's also quite upset that in his last slew of pardons, former President Joe Biden exonerated folks in the likes of Mr. Fauci, who had been found with a case to answer concerning what happened with COVID. But he pardoned them. And now for him, he's like, this World Health Organization, you people have been messing around with us for too long, so we're not doing again. We're not part of that club. He's also pulled out of the Paris Agreement, like we said, and his actions have now elicited a myriad of reactions, including the Vatican, where Pope Francis termed his intended mass deportation exercise a disgrace. He said Sunday night, if true, this will be a disgrace because it makes the poor wretches who have nothing to pay the bill for the problem, he says. This won't do. This is not the way to solve things. That's not how things are resolved.
Really?
People all over the world are reacting, and they're reacting proper. Let me tell you, the Panamanian president, Jose Raul Mulino, was quick to react to the news by Trump that the U.S. would, according to the AA World, recover the Panama Canal shortly after his inauguration Monday. He said the waterway is and will continue to be Panama's. They fought over the canal for decades. And they've said, you know what, sorry, it doesn't matter if it's Trump 2.0, it is not leaving the hands of Panama. On behalf of the Republic of Panama and its people, I must reject in a comprehensive manner the words outlined by President Donald Trump regarding Panama and its canal. In his inaugural speech, he denied any foreign presence in the administration of the canal shortly after President Trump claimed that China was operating it. By putting pen to paper Monday, Trump targeted the automatic citizenship to US-born children of immigrants in the country illegally. He sought to make sure that documents recognizing UN citizenship for individuals who meet their criteria were denied 30 days after the order was signed. There are many things happening, and it looks like America might keep sneezing, but I think the real bellyache is going to be within.
Very. Let me just read something from an American living in Mexico. And it's Douglas Whiteside, and he says he's an American raised in the born and raised in the US, but now lives in Mexico, and says the United States doesn't even know how many of its citizens live legally in other countries, much less those living illegally. Just here in Mexico, while estimates vary, there could be as many as 1.5 million US citizens living illegally in Mexico, just next door.
Yes.
It'll be interesting times ahead, I'm telling you. And I'm here for it.
How many do we have in Kenya that live here legally?
You know, what he has done is very simple. He has set certain things in motion.
Yes.
And he has also given his would-be opponent all the ammunition.
And some.
Yeah. Remember what we said earlier on? This campaigning for the presidency in America, it's starting now. Because, people are going to go to court. He's going to be censured.
Consider that he-she thing.
It's going to... wait. But he is the president. That's how he thinks. That's how he has been advised. And that's how he hopes to run his country. Okay? Yeah. So, the question we should ask is, how is it going to affect us? Because it can affect Panama, but the Panamanians will speak.
Yeah.
How is it going to affect us? Because even things like funding for HIV.
Big deal here.
And the support for our health system. Remember, the government, they have said 3 months now they are putting it on hold. All that funding, hold. As they review.
But let's also remember that it was under Trump 1, season 1, I'm going to call it that we saw the highest reduction of aid coming to Africa.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we did. Yes, we did. But
and it looks like it's just going to follow that trend.
But let's speak honestly about this. Remember, the fund was an emergency fund, if I'm talking about PEPFAR. Do we still have the emergency? No. Have the respective governments who've been receiving these fundings, like Kenyan government, understood that this funding at some point had to come to an end, and have they prepared for it?
No, I think they did understand. But once again, the lazy implementation of policy is what is our bane. And I really do believe that African nations, we don't actually have to have this begging bowl. But because it is easy and it makes you comfortable, that you don't want to think out of the box. And if we did, you see this thing that they come and say that America sneezes. Guess what? We can all be sneezing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And I'm thinking, even as you talk about the emergency fund, we have the African Union. What stops the African Union sitting and coming about with policies around these issues?
The
African Union.
Okay. Which country do you find it?
Oh, Ethiopia.
Ethiopia
is the headquarters.
Union is
but
even
African
being controlled by these
here.
Americans.
But I'm just saying, if we put our acts together, such issues would not be catching the cold. So perhaps it's a challenge to our government to sit down and do right by its people and put in place policies that will safeguard us from such issues.
Policies we have.
Implementation zero.
The doing is where we have a problem. Policies we have, and nice ones too. That one. If you ask Ministry of Health, they'll even tell you we had a transition plan. How to move away from
state corporations. Now, University Fund and Higher Education Loans Board, clearly Higher Education Loans Board has been axed. So Kenya Tourism Board and the Tourism Research Institute, Export Processing Zones Authority, Special Economic Zones Authority, Anti-Counterfeit Authority, Kenya Industrial Property Institute, and Kenya Copyright Board. All that have been collapsed into one, and Kenya Industrial Research and Development Institute, Kenya Industrial Estate. Now let's just pick one because there are about 20. University Fund and Higher Education Loans Board.
They've become one.
Yes. I think now we'll just call it the university fund.
Okay.
Under the new funding model.
Simba.
Our help was working. Is the new thingy working? So which parastatal are we supposed to believe in or trust? I'd go for help.
So they've become one now?
Hey.
It's okay.
So are we collapsing them really because we've seen there's a gap, or is it just so we have our thing that you're controlling?
Or is it moving towards consolidation, where we've said for the longest time that anything to do with funding, you shouldn't have so many cooks in the kitchen. Have one thing where you consolidate everything and just put together the funds that you need to give people and then give it to them, instead of this whole, what do they call it, testing, checking if you're vulnerable or least indigent, whatever.
You know, everything that we hear and read, it is and has always been possible for each of these so-called parastatals to have been a section within a mother parastatal, okay? But there was a reason why they were fully fledged parastatals standing on their own 2 feet, so to speak. So are we saying that that particular purpose has come to an end, that it no longer serves that purpose, or that we no longer have need for whatever it was that it stood for? Like I heard Dennis reading about Kenya industrial estates. Have we axed it, or what have we merged it with?
Yeah.
I ask because Kenya industrial estates is important. If you're talking about SMEs and you're talking about ensuring that you can reach people and get citizens to be able to benefit, this is an institution that had the know-how, had the personnel who had been trained to ensure or to guarantee those seeking help. You know, these hustler fund and all these fund things.
Yeah.
These guys had the mechanisms for ensuring, one, follow-up, ensuring, B, you actually give whatever funding you require to the right people. So funding could have been funneled through them.
Yep.
So now, if you tell me you are collapsing it, and then we have all these funds, the mechanism for follow-up, first of all, where is it?
Where is it?
And I would just quote what the cabinet said. And the reforms will address operational and financial inefficiencies, enhance service delivery, and reduce reliance on the exchequer, read cabinet dispatch following the first cabinet meeting in the new year, which was held at Kakamega State Lodge yesterday. Now, Kenya has a multi-year program with the IMF in which President Ruto's government has committed to the multilateral financier to reduce the size of its budget in order to lift the country from its current state, where it is at high risk of defaulting on its debt. The IMF has warned that several state corporations are in poor financial health, with their liabilities, including debt, exceeding their assets.
Wow.
So this is on directive from the IMF.
The people who have headed these institutions, are they going to be held to book? Because money doesn't lose itself.
It's taken.
It doesn't, it's taken. If money was given, if indeed it was given, and there were specific things we were supposed to do, were those specific things done? And if they were not done, why not? And the people who were charged with ensuring that these things get done, where are they? Can they give an account? Because all these parastatals you're saying aren't working. The people who are in charge, let them come and explain to us why.
And if the reason why you're collapsing them or dissolving some is because they're not working, and you don't actually deal with the reason as to why they stopped working, you're just going to have another group of things that will not work. Same fate.
Yeah, pretty much what I hear you say is this merger and the collapse of these parastatals should be followed up with an explanation.
It should have started.
Yes,
it should have started
on why
with an explanation.
They didn't work, and moving forward, how we're going to seal these gaps, because just collapsing them and not addressing the challenges is zero work.
Yeah. It's like saying, oh, well, you know, my house is leaking, so rather than have somebody come and fix the thing, I'm just going to move.
Or I'm going to build a new house.
Yeah, I'll build a new house and that one keeps leaking. Come on.
Or I'll move the roof to the bedroom, remove it from this living room. So, yeah.
There are people behind these institutions, and it doesn't matter how far back we go, they must explain to us. Because when you say we're running at a loss and we're burning the money, we know how much is given to each institution. We know what they're supposed to do. An account, please. Tell us where the money has gone.
And the parastatal city, you could correct me, is meant to be more of a private institution that is supposed to stand on its own, create its own profits and all that.
That's the general idea.
Yes. So if they failed, they are in debt. Who failed? Who dropped the ball? Because remember, taxpayers as well fund them.
Case, for example, Kenya Ports Authority is a parastatal. just in case you didn't know.
Yes.
Kenya Ferry Services, Parastatal. Do they make money? Yes. Okay. Once upon a time, Posta also. Once upon a time, but really, it's on its knees, really.
Yeah.
All these bodies were set up for a purpose. There is none which was set up frivolously. Kenya Shipping Line was set up for a purpose. It is in that list that I hear either going to be merged or either going to, and the other day we were reading how it is. We want to train 3,500 people for maritime.
Seafarers. I was going to say wayfarers.
Yes.
Sorry.
And astronauts.
and we have a parastatal that would absorb them. It's called Kenya National Shipping Line.
Yeah.
And what's becoming of it? I mean, that we need to rationalize what we have goes that question. We have to rationalize it. But unfortunately, there has to be an explanation as to why they got to the point where they need to either be dissolved or they are declared outdated or they require restructuring.
Rationalization is the easy part, if you ask me. It's easy to say that. Well, it doesn't make sense because two people are doing the same job. Okay, fine. Oh, money's wasting. But if you don't actually find out the reasons behind it and then know how to deal with it, it's just going to follow you. It's going to go with you. Can I give you a story about teachers?
Yeah, sure.
OCT, did you have something?
Nope, I do not.
Teachers battle for 25,000 slots. Remember, the president said that they're going to hire another 10,000 teachers. Well, okay, here we go. Over 189,000 teachers applied for promotions, nearly for 25,000 promotions, nearly 8 times the declared 25,288 vacancies announced by their employer. In an internal notice, the Teacher Service Commission indicated that they had received an overwhelming response highlighting the high demand for career advancement opportunities among the tutors. So the vacancies, which include 9,179 positions for post-primary schools and 16,109 for primary schools, attracted applications from teachers across the country. So, sub-county level, 96,640 primary school teachers have been shortlisted with interviews scheduled between the 13th and 24th of January. For post-primary vacancies, 44,043 teachers in grades C3 to D2 will be interviewed at the county level, from January 27th to February 7th. Meanwhile, 7,224 principals and teachers in grades D3 to D5 will attend interviews at regional headquarters during the same period. A total of 189,948 applications have been received for these vacancies. So we can tell you unequivocally that 50,000 people will be disappointed. In fact, 154,000 applications will not go through. As per they may attend the interviews, but what does that tell you when you have such a high number of applicants for a few job positions?
In my mind, the pertinent question is the staff complement that we need in our schools. Have we met it? Then I can answer no.
What did we do, the science teachers?
Do we have enough teachers to fill these spots? Actually, not really. Do we have people who could be engaged to fill these spots? Yes. So, we have a problem which we actually have a solution to, but the solution isn't being applied. This is a broken leg, and you are applying elastoplast.
Or applying Kaluma instead of having a plaster on. And Kaluma, Kaluma the dawa.
Oh, not the MP.
Yeah.
Oh, I was a bit confused, but it's okay. We can apply both and see. There seem to be solutions either way. Okay, so we're coming to the top of the hour and we'll see what in the news. But then we'll start having conversations about the trump cards to play, and in this case, what to do with your money in 2025. Our friends from Standard Chartered will be in the hot seat, and they will join us at 7 o'clock as we look into some of those matters. All right, just to remind you, we're streaming on YouTube and Facebook, and we'll be joined by our audience on KTN in just a little while. Good morning. It is 7 a.m.
Spice up your
Kagera in Tanzania on January 20th this year after one case tested positive for the virus. Muthoni said the Ministry of Health remains committed to protecting the health and safety of all Kenyans. The PS added that surveillance has also been enhanced countrywide in all counties and at points of entry. President William Ruto is today expected to visit Quisero as a part of his week-long tour of the Western region. Ruto, who has been in Kakamega County, has been launching and inspecting various development projects. While in Shinyalu yesterday, Ruto promoted national unity campaigns as well as government initiatives such as Asha, while ignoring leaders who promote tribal politics.
Watu wa Shinyalu, jameni, mimi nawaomba, mnakubali tuungane ama unasema tutengane? Tuungane ama tutengane? Wale wanakubali tuungane nione jameni. Very good. Tuungane namna hiyo. Sasa ile kazi imebaki wewe mtu ya Shinyalu. Ni wewe kujisajili, kujiandikisha. Mumejiandikisha kwa SHA ama bado mnangojea? Wewe ambaye bado hujajiandikisha unangoja nani? Unangoja nani wewe? Ati mwingine hapa ananiambia ati hana pesa. Nani alikuambia kujiandikisha inahitaji pesa?
And Deputy President Kithure Kindiki has continued his call for unity, saying the Western community has been remembered and for the first time is in the government.
Mheshimiwa William Ruto, na ndio kwa sababu tuko hapa sisi wote tukisema hatutaki tupotoshwe na watu ambao wametolewa kwa kisheria, kwa kikatiba, alafu nazurura hapa wanadanganya ni hao ndio wataunda serikali. Serikali ni hii na sisi tutakuwa hapa, na mimi nataka niwaambie tunashikana kabisa, hii Kenya itakuwa na maendeleo zaidi.
Ruto was accompanied by Kindiki, Mudavadi, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, other cabinet ministers, governors and various leaders from the Western region who pledged to support him in the upcoming elections.
Umesikia vile rais amesema ni lazima tuungane sisi zote kama wa Kenya. Kweli si kweli? Mngetaka tuungane? Vile rais amesema aendelea kuunganisha watu wote ya Kenya. Sasa tuko group moja na ma-DVD na Weta na Oparanya na Barasa na Kalwale, sisi ni kitu kimoja. Tuendelee namna hiyo. Mheshimiwa Rais amesema hii umoja wa taifa anatafuta ili tulete maendeleo kwa wananchi.
Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja now says he's ready to appear in court over the disappearance of 3 missing individuals who were allegedly abducted in Lolonga last December. Speaking to reporters in Kwale County, Kanja, who's previously failed to honor 3 court summons over the matter, insisted that police are not involved in abductions. Last week, Justice Chacha Mwita directed Kanja and DCI boss Mohammed Amin to personally appear in court and produce Justice Mutumwa, Martin Mwao and Karani Mwema, dead or alive.
Na wakati ya kufika kotini, mimi mwenyewe nitafika binafsi na tutakuwa na nyinyi pale, si kweli? Na nitasema hiyo maneno vile nimesema hapa, sio? Investigations siko at advanced levels. In all reported cases of missing persons, the DCI and his team, mimi mwenyewe nimepeana maagizo ya kwamba those investigations nataka zifanywe na zifanywe vizuri na ziweze kumalizika. Jabazi yote ambao anahusika na hiyo mambo akamatwe na apelekwe kotini, achughulikiwe kwa mujibu wa sheria, maana nchi yetu iko na sheria. So hapo ndio sisi tuko, na wakati tutafika wale tuko tumecheka tutawajulisha.
That's the news wire. I'm Lea Ubaga.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
And traffic in Nairobi right now, we look at several roads. We start with the Thika Road, and from Outer Ring all the way to Thika Road as you get towards the CBD around Muthaiga from KCA University is clogged up bumper to bumper. But we look at other roads, and that is Waiyaki Way getting to the CBD is equally busy and packed, but will get smoother by the day. Ngong Road is Busy in some areas, so is Langata Road as you get to the CBD. If you look at Cabanas, that is Mombasa Road getting to the CBD, is moving. Nothing much to report about. But let's stay here. We shall have you updated on the situation on the roads. Good morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start online, mobile, and on radio.
Okay, at a few minutes after 7 o'clock, good morning, 7:07, and getting into the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning. And we're getting into, it's just interesting that we've used the word Trump today, but all right. We're getting into a conversation about what to play this year, 2025. And our good friends from Standard Chartered are here. We'll let you know just about that in just a minute. And even as we do, let's just say good morning and a great Situation Room welcome to both of our guests this morning. Paul Njoki is the head of Affluent Banking and Wealth Management Products, Kenya and East Africa. Paul, good morning. Good to have you here this morning.
Good morning, too.
How are you?
I'm great.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.
Same here. And also we're joined for the first time this year by Manpreet Gill, who's the Chief Investment Officer, Africa, Middle East and Europe, Standard Chartered. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Du. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. And I mean, off the jump today, we're looking into what cards to play, playing your trump card, investing in 2025. Okay, but before we do that, as we normally do, let's welcome you with today's proverb. You tell us what you think about it and, how you would interpret that and what you think about it. That's what we do. First time in the morning, we give you a job to do. We give you something to do as we get into it. And CT, you may not know this, but CT has this wonderful ability to go to a different African country every week. Don't ask the how, just know that it happens. And then he comes back from these countries with a basket of proverbs from a particular country for the week. And so today he'll share that with you, and then you let us know what you think.
This country has some fairly unique features. It is one of the cleanest countries on earth, not in Africa, on earth. It is the second most densely populated country in Africa. And it has the best gender parity parliament on the continent.
Mm-hmm. Do you want them to guess, CT?
I see them nodding.
Okay.
So I'm assuming they've understood that I expect them to respond. Which country do you think this is?
Well, if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say it's Rwanda.
Good hazard?
Yeah, it's Rwanda.
You'd hazard Rwanda as well. Yeah. You clearly spent your time well in geography classes. It is Rwanda. Yes. It's actually a very interesting country in many, many, many ways. The proverb: the most extensive land is the human belly. What do you think this proverb means, and how would you relate it to real life?
The most extensive belly is a human. The most extensive
land.
Yeah, land is the human belly.
Yes.
Yeah, you keep planting every day and just never get full.
Wow, yeah.
Well, if I think about it another way, extensive land, right? It's a great example of you can do with it what you want, but how you discipline yourself is also important. You can cultivate it badly, not have control over your belly, or you can impose a lot of discipline. And I think there are many parts of life where whether your diet, your exercise, or indeed your investment life, you really can, you can lead to a good outcome or a bad outcome depending on your own discipline.
Very true, very true, very true. Because everything we're going to discuss today revolves around what you've just said. The ability to manage the resources you have well, and that comes about when you have the requisite discipline. Yes.
Indeed. So, I mean, Manpreet and Paul, even as we get into this conversation, we're talking about wealth management and we're talking about investing. And that's one of the ways, from the conversations that we've had with you over the last 6 weeks, and then getting into the new year, is really looking into how you can, create and manage wealth. And one of those that we've been able to hear and really get into has been investment. And I guess that's now forms the conversation that we'll be having today. You've been in the business of this wealth creation and management for over 2 decades. And, being able to hone in on that specifically and say, you know what, guys, this is what we can actually do. This is where you can actually put your money. Let's get into this by just doing an overview of, all right, wealth management in the last 20 years, in the last 25 years. What have we actually been able to achieve, Paul, and what are we looking for going into the future?
Thank you. I think when I look back, it's with a lot of nostalgia because, I remember back in the day when you were studying, you gotta have a view of where you would want to be. But looking back, you've surpassed that view multiple times, and it's because of the support that we've gotten from Kenyans, particularly, the individual investors and the small businesses, because that's a focus of our business from an investment perspective. But some of the numbers that I do remember, 2016, we were just about 19 billion of asset management. Sometimes this year we closed 200 billion. So you can actually already see there's a clear, 10 times multiple of that number. And I'm sure when we publish the number for end of year last year, it will be slightly more than 200 billion. And we look forward, right?
These figures we speak of, do they represent only this country? Do they represent the region? Do they represent the continent?
Kenya only.
Only Kenya?
I'm talking Kenya only, yeah.
That is a heck of a lot of money.
It's Kenya only, yeah. But also I also look at the sophistication. We started with, very simple products. They were far and in between. But now we've completed the range. If you're looking for a simple investment, the SC shilling with 500 shillings, right?
Yes.
And also you're looking at more of the complicated, more sophisticated products, like structured products. We got the range, and also the currencies from shillings to pound to euro to the dollar, and we can do that. And of course, some of the conversation we'll be having today, you'll see how much scope we can actually bring into the Kenya market. Sure.
And even, Manpreet, as you talk about that, we talk about investments, we think profits. Okay, I'm going to put in 500 shillings. At the end of the time, I want 600. I've made a profit of 100 shillings. But haven't we seen a diversification of that to make sure now that the folks who now brought about 19 billion in 2016 and are bringing about 200 billion in 2024, that you're actually seeing an achievement of life goals and not just, putting in the 500 and getting 600.
No, absolutely. And I think the fact that obviously, wealth creators have achieved success at various points in their life, which is why they're able to deploy this. But, that process, that discipline of achieving diversification, achieving a positive return, that never goes away. And one of the simplest reasons why we still need to maintain that discipline and make sure we make good use of our resources is that you have inflation. That's the one thing that continues to eat away no matter what sort of shilling or dollar value you start with. And that's before you want to think about earning a positive return. And that's why, look, we can talk about, the range of products and asset classes you can invest in. But the single most important thing, whether you're starting 500 shillings or 500 million, is to really step back and say, look, what's the purpose? What am I trying to achieve with this investment? Is it just a little profit? Am I trying to beat inflation? Am I trying to take a little bit of risk to generate a much higher return? And spending time defining that and then really building your investment strategy around it. And that discipline doesn't change. It applies to the smallest of figures, it applies to the biggest of figures. But it comes back to the proverb we started it. It's about what you do with it and what discipline and plan you bring to that.
For a very long time, investments have been, for majority pretty much, has been I want to get this money, cash in, get out. But here we're talking about investing for a certain goal, and this then goes into place in having discussions with the would-be clients and making sure that they understand the reasoning behind investing for a certain goal. Goes into communication with the clients. So how is the uptake in terms of just changing the mindset?
Yeah, and that's a very, very good question, because when you think about wealth management, it starts with the state of mind, right? It's not about having the money, it's having the goal that you want to actually get wealthy. And what we've seen over time is the goals generally do not change. The life goals are generally the same. Of course, the way they are framed could be different. We all want to put our children to college, right? We are keen about having an emergency, kitty for, say health emergency or that kind of thing. We want to retire in dignity, and if we do a good job, we also want to pass some of the wealth to the next generation. So those are generally the goals, right? But we want to be able to talk about it in a way that the client understand their own life circumstances and interpret that now, right? So that's the first thing. Then the other piece is also understanding the client's own way of approaching investment. There are people who are conservative, and they'll go slowly but surely over time, like the tortoise, right? But they'll still get there. The others who want to, be a little bit aggressive, but that's okay. So understanding that becomes very important, and then bringing it together and bringing the solutions that, Manpreet and team bring us to be able to then implement those goals to actual investment that the client can benefit from. Yeah.
This entity called Standard Chartered has been around for a century plus. Hasn't it not?
Yes.
So it means that only 20 or thereabout years into this century is what we have experienced. What is it that you have as a plan for wealth creation and investment for people who will carry this institution well into this century in preparedness for the next century?
I think one cornerstone of that is always thinking long term, right? And it shows, like you said, in terms of how long we've been around and as an organization. But actually, when you think about the portfolios we create, every year we actually start with a 10-year plan to say, okay, if I had to build a portfolio, what do my returns likely to look like over the next 10 years? And based on that, what do the simple baseline, allocation look like? And once you have that in place, of course, you can talk about, okay, this year, I think, we think equities will do better, and some other years our views might be different. But what it does is force us to all think about, again, small or large figures, what's that foundation portfolio that not only gets me invested, but make sure I stay invested for that long term. And I think what we know from theory is that taking a long-term view is one really important cornerstone of generating wealth and investment returns sustainably over time. But that's exactly what we built into our process to make sure, regardless of the individuals and whoever's around, the organization, the wealth portfolios, we're always thinking long-term and not just the next trade.
You see, the portfolio I'm thinking of is a portfolio that focuses on the human person. And this human person is called youth. Because ancient crocodiles like myself are on their way out. And we will definitely not see the next century. It doesn't matter what we do, okay? It is a question that I always bring up because we do not have a saving culture in this country that you can speak of. There are those who have the discipline, and it follows perhaps the families in which, or the ecosystem, or the society, or the community in which they have grown up in. But it doesn't have to stay that way. We actually can make it a national culture. Now, if you're to venture out of your normal comfort zone of just banking and looking at investments, has Standard Chartered considered investing and looking into and partnering with educational institutions so that these principles we speak of now, when people are all grown up and have wonderful ideas about what they want to do, when those ideas can actually be grown and nurtured and matured, has Standard Chartered considered how it is that they can do this? Because in my mind, this is what would carry Standard Chartered on to the rest of this century and on to the next.
It's interesting you bring that up because while one part of our day job is the day-to-day investing, there's a parallel series we run on investor education. And it sort of goes to exactly what you're describing, to say, look, we might spend a lot of time thinking about markets, what Trump will do, and what else might happen. But at the basics, it's about saying whether it's a new investor starting their journey, as a youth, or it's a more mature investor, how can we help along with that journey? And pieces we publish over the past years, they're almost evergreen. They're, asking questions like, how do I build an investment plan? How do I think about protecting wealth? How do I think about investing in stocks versus more diversified, assets? So these are things that, yes, of course, we can always do more, but it is almost like a parallel path we do in this investment office. Not only think about markets and investing today, the next 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, but also how do we make sure that continuously we educate investors across the spectrum about doing this, what we think is a better way.
I'm going to ask a direct question. Of the portfolios you have, do you have a figure as to what percentage of the individuals who invest with you are under the age of 40?
I can take that. I think, and bring it home, right? And SC Shilingi is a very good example, because when we roll out the product, we didn't know, but the data now has come. About 39% of all clients are below the age of 30. And then below the age of 30, and another about 36% are below the age of 40. So in total, you get about 78% below the age of 40. Okay. And we see that dynamic actually playing out even in the other products, like the Signature CIO that we launched a year and a half ago. We are seeing the young people coming in. And one of the things that are attracting these people is that the product offering is digital. They don't want anything that you sign papers anywhere. They want everything on the phone, right? And to add into what Manpreet has said, we're also putting a communication series, which we put in podcast, investor tips as well, digitally, as in the digital channel, so that the people can actually consume this information, approaching from different corners, but over time, and then you have it that. It's something that we have to keep doing so that we build the next generation of investors.
Right. So even as we look, it's still time when we're in the beginning of the year, and it's just interesting that Manpreet taught every year we do a 10-year plan, right? Coming from Standard Chartered. But so now we're saying, okay, there's a card to be played in 2025, and we're still early in the game, as it were. So what are the points that we're looking at in 2025 and saying, okay, these are the big ticket items, and we're saying, okay, I'm sure there are going to be folks who are going to come to the RM and sit and say, okay, so what are we going to do this year? But even as we go into that now, what are some of the areas in which you're looking at and say, this is, because that is it about wealth management and affluence, is that there are certain areas that you're going to say, this is where we think you should go into, this is where you should put your shilling. What are we looking at for this year?
So I think there are a couple of themes that come through this year. I think number one is really about how do investors get exposure to growth. There's been a big debate about whether Trump's presidency will be good or bad for the world economy. And we'll most probably see a bit of volatility, a bit more than what we saw in the last couple of years. But the bottom line is that we think that the final outcome will be a positive one for economic growth. And that means it's a positive one for asset classes exposed to that. So stocks, global stocks, we like the US a little more than the rest of the region, but stocks in most parts of the world should do well. And other growth like assets, in the developed world, for example, we can look at high yield bonds, which are obviously a type of bonds that is more exposed to economic growth than what's happening on interest rates. So I think that's one cornerstone. But the second one, of course, is we do want to achieve a reasonable amount of diversification. We do think there'll be a little bit more volatility compared to the almost straight line up we saw in most equity markets last year. And that's why we think gold plays a key role. Because gold is almost driven by very different factors.
Gold, the shiny stuff.
The shiny metal. Right. Whether you want a physical one or an electronic version, investors like both. But what's really interesting about gold is that if I look at returns of the past 30 years, they're not that far off from what stock markets have done. But what drives it is very, very different. It's not about economic growth, but it's really about the fact that supply is limited. And in recent years, especially, we've seen central banks come back as big buyers of gold. Of course, we also like it in portfolios because if stocks and high yield bonds have a bumpy ride, then gold can be a great stabilizer, at least in the short term. So I think that combination of assets together, and I think the third cornerstone is achieving enough diversification.
Right.
We haven't spoken about high quality bonds, we haven't spoken about currencies or commodities, but the equities and gold might be the ones we like the most, but a well-constructed long-term portfolio, of course, will still be well-diversified across geographies, across asset classes.
Right.
Those three principles, I think, are what we're really looking at in a year when we're most probably going to get a lot of, big headlines.
So I think there's a lot here, right? But if we talk about diversification, when you think about diversification, and I'm here with my 10,000 shillings, how diverse can I get? Because one of the things that we do talk about is, okay, so first of all, currencies. I can have Kenya shillings, but who says that I cannot, invest my money in other currencies, euro, the British pound, the US dollar? I can do that. But now when we talk about diversification, so how do I know where to go? How do I know where to put it? I know that's why you're there, but then what do you advise?
Yeah, and that's a very good question, and it's a question we asked ourselves about 2 years ago, and it was coming from clients saying, okay, how do I actually get into the market and achieve the diversification that the CIO office is telling us every year? And we came up with the signature CIO funds. These are funds that we had for the longest, been having in our private banking unit, and we brought it down now to retail. We made the tickets smaller, and we made it digital, so the clients can get it on the app. And these particular funds, there are 4 of them. So there is a conservative fund, there is a balanced fund, there is an income fund, and there is a growth fund, right? So depending on the client's risk appetite or the ability to invest in terms of their risk parameters, then they can pick 1 or 2 of those. So for example, if a client picks the balance fund, immediately that balance fund reflects the views that Pamprit has just spoken about, and then they are edited every single time that the CIO office have a change of view, or they want to in terms of the forecast, then they actually automatically make that change. So as a client, you don't have to do anything.
Okay,
all right,
it's done.
Okay. So we look at the year 2025 as we get into it. There is the Trump now is the president, decisions that would be made, and no one knows how the market will be in the future. And with this now comes in your clients in terms of avoiding emotional decisions that would emanate depending on how the market will be. Could be volatile, could be smooth. But how then do we sit down with the clients and making sure that any decision they make is that which will help them grow their wealth even better?
Yeah. I'll take first, and then Manpreet can add. I think the really fast thing is having the conversation around the goals. I think I can't overemphasize that.
Right.
Because if you set a goal, say you're putting your child to college in the next 10 years, that's a goal. Now, the market may have volatility within that period, but that's the goal we've set. So for us is to agree, how do we execute in a portfolio so that goal is achieved? And secondly, that we are able to ride whatever volatility may be there and deal with the issues of inflation, currency depreciation, and all that. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is understanding the client's risk profile. So if the client is conservative, then we take a conservative route towards that goal. If it's aggressive, we take an aggressive approach to that goal, meaning the client can sleep good at night. We don't want to start a conservative client into an aggressive portfolio, because then every day they're like, oh my God, what's happening, right? Again, if a client is an aggressive investor and you make them conservative, every day they're like, man, this thing is too slow, man.
So when you say it's too slow, it's too fast, because in my mind, the picture that I created in my head is how, you have folks who are crunching the numbers, and I'm watching that screen and things are going up and down. So when you talk about high risk, somebody who has an appetite for high risk is when you say, okay, I want to be able to put a lot of this money here and I want to watch it grow.
Yep.
Or when you say conservative, the one whereby it's like the tortoise. You put this money here and you are sure it is 1 shilling a day, but at least we know it is 1 shilling a day. We leave it there and we sleep.
Precisely. I think you've defined it very, very well.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're and the aggressive investors, they also like a little bit of the thrill, right? And they want to more constant conversation with our RM. So where are the markets? What is the views coming from the CIO? Do I need to make adjustments, right? So that's the way the aggressive investors do. Of course, the risk and return, right? The equation generally is the higher risk you take, you get a higher return. But also the other way, high return, also high risk. It can be the other way. So the aggressive investor may get there quicker, but they have taken quite an aggressive route, right? The conservative may get there a little bit later, but then they have been easy. They haven't had to have sleepless nights at any
heart
time.
attack. Yeah.
No, I think what I'd add is that I'd almost re-emphasize the point on goals, because whether you're a conservative or an aggressive investor, it almost helps, define how to react and how not to overreact. Because a conservative investor, to your point, Paul, might be, a point where you're looking to avoid sort of making mistakes through volatility and try and achieve, more sort of consistency, of returns, reduce the risk of sort of, events surprising you. But that's also important in terms of how you define the goal.
Yeah.
For an aggressive investor, that doesn't mean they have to become short-term in nature. But what it means when events happen, and events can happen very quickly, I think it makes it much clearer how an investor should react. So if we do get a volatility event tomorrow morning, as an aggressive investor, the big picture perspective, the long-term view can help define, okay, should I act? In some cases, the right answer might be not to do anything. And we shouldn't discount that quality, that option, that's a decision as well. So I think it still comes back to the point about defining the goals. That's perhaps the single most important thing, and not confusing sort of risk appetite with, the need to do something and act quickly. I think it just provides a better guide on when to do something and, in fact, when not to do something.
Indeed. All right. We're talking about, so what card to play in 2025? Where are you going to put your money? How are you going to grow your wealth and manage that? Our very good friends from Standard Chartered are here. Manpreet Gill is a CIO, as the Chief Investment Officer, Africa, Middle East and Europe. And Paul Njoki is the Head of Affluent Banking and Wealth Management Products, Kenya and East Africa. We'll take a break and see what's happening, weather and traffic. And we'll come back and say, okay, so after the break, where exactly and how exactly can you begin and continue with your wealth management? It's 28 minutes to 8.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with Spice FM.
And the weather this morning in Nairobi, highs of 27 degrees and lows of 15 degrees. In Kakamega, Kenya, that is highs of 30 degrees and lows of 15 degrees. In Mombasa, highs of 32 degrees and lows of 25 degrees. In Nakuru City, Kenya's fourth city, highs of 28 degrees and lows of 12 degrees. In the lakeside city of Kisumu, highs of 29 degrees and lows of 18 degrees. Across the borders to Mogadishu, Somalia, highs of 30 degrees and lows of 23 degrees. In Lagos, Nigeria, good weather there, highs of 33 degrees and lows of 26 degrees. In Johannesburg, South Africa, highs of 27 degrees and lows of 13 degrees. In the city of Le, Paris, France, highs of 8 degrees and lows of 2 degrees. In China, highs of 6 degrees and lows of negative 4 degrees. That is the weather. These are good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything
Spice up your life.
All right, so we are in traffic hours. Take a look at what's coming off of the Thika Superhighway. Quite some traffic coming in from Garden City and Kasarani. Before that, you get to Survey, and it's going to slow down significantly because there is that hold up as you then try to approach the Pangani Tunnel. Some traffic on Kiambu Road, not too bad, can be managed. Also, Lower Kabete through towards Spring Valley is now, and we're starting to see that pick up. It's not too bad on Waiakiwe. You'll get into the city without a problem, at least for now. All right, Aerodrome Road has been giving very early this week, and we see that continuing. Some traffic coming off of Langata Road will find its way to Raila Odinga Way, but the Southern Bypass is looking good. There's your scenic route into and out of the city this morning. A quick look at the Eastern Bypass shows that some traffic will trickle over through towards North Airport Road. Let's see what happens as we get into traffic hour proper, and we'll talk on Spice FM KE on X. Hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We're talking money this hour, and we're trying to figure out, okay, so what do we do in 2025? Manpreet and Paul are here this morning, and as we do that, I guess that's just the question, that there may be folks who've been, part of this 200 billion in 2024, and are saying, yeah, well, we've tried it, it seems to work. But then there are folks who've done nothing, but also say, I have the goals. I want to send my children to university wherever in the next 10 years. I've never done this before. What are your first steps if somebody's at a first step status, Paul?
Yeah, so thank you, and a very good. Where do we start? So the first thing is that talk to us. You can either approach any of our branch network, or you can email us at wealth.kenya@sc.com, wealth.kenya@sc.com, and we're gonna put you across to speak to a relationship manager. And an investment advisor. So that's the first step. And that step is to help you be clear about the goals and, of course, the risk capital, as we mentioned in the previous segment, right? Once that is done, the next thing then is we showcase for you the product range that we have, from the simplest of the products to, I would say, of course, again, depending on your risk appetite, to the more sophisticated products. And then, obviously, then see, what is the right mix of these products to have in your portfolio. And then we get started. The execution is digital, so we're able to put the deals digitally on the mobile app very, very quickly. And then there you go. After that, then there will be regular conversation to ensure that indeed that the direction where we've set the sale is indeed the direction that you intended. And we monitor that over a period of time. And then off you go. So I think that's how to get you started. So talk to us, and we'll get you started in the journey. Yeah.
There's always the starting, but then there's the staying. And that's brings us back to the earlier mention of discipline. How do you help your clients maintain discipline? Because there are scary moments in investments. It's a sure thing, and then something that onto it nobody could have figured out happens, and suddenly you feel and think your portfolio may be endangered. How do you help your clients?
So maybe I can start, and I'm sure Paul will have more to add. But I think from the CI office perspective, there are two important points here. I think number one is always making investment decisions in the context of that long-term portfolio. Because, and the reason I emphasize that is when things get scary, there's a temptation to say, I want to sell, I want to go back to the perceived safety of cash. But the thing with the long-term foundation portfolio is you don't give yourself that option. You're basically saying, well, I might change my mix a little bit, maybe I'll reduce my equities and buy, safer, less volatile bonds. But in the bigger picture, make sure that while you make those adjustments, you're always stay invested. And often that's why my favorite way of thinking about investing is not only about getting invested, but it's equally about staying invested. And the long-term portfolio always helps force that. And I think the second one is also just about informing yourself. So when we have big events, we've had obviously a US presidential election, we've had geopolitical conflicts in the last year. We always try to put out a little bit more detail for our clients to say, look, let's understand what's going on here. And I think conflicts are a great example of where you see the screaming headlines and there's a big temptation to do something. But the context we try to provide is saying, look, what can we learn from history? Conflicts have happened throughout history, but financial markets have a much narrower view of the world. They don't always care or respond to all sort of, big political events around the world. So just building that understanding, learning from history is the other hand-holding part we do with our clients, so that, when they do think about making decisions on their portfolio, we try to make sure they're as well equipped with the context, the history, and just a little bit more information on why markets are doing what they do and whether there really is a need to do anything.
So let's go about, there is the starting, there is the staying, but let's talk about the 5 principles, right? And I'll just go through them. Discipline, diversification, time in the market. How do I know when is the right time to invest? I will talk about diversification. I'm used to savings. Maybe there are bonds I could get into. There are money markets I could get into, but it is information I am not privy to. Where do I go to? Standard Chartered Bank. How do we have this discussion? But most importantly, in terms of risk, return, and protection, there are risks, there are returns, there is, importantly, how do I protect my investment such that I may continue growing this wealth? Because at the end of the day, all we're doing is making sure that this wealth does grow. So in terms of from the bank's perspective, how do we have all these principles understood by the client?
So the good thing is that the way we have set up ourselves as a bank, and we have the conversation with the client actually end up executing on each of these principles without consciously knowing they're actually doing it, right? Yeah. So let's start from setting the goal, and once we set the goal, immediately what we are doing is we are creating that long-term view. That's number one. So the timing questions start getting included as part of the philosophy, the investment philosophy. We're saying it's 10 years. So something may happen in the short term. It's like a bump in a journey or a pothole in a journey. It doesn't stop you from going the journey, right? So time in the market or start getting in. Then the second thing that we have is around the discipline. So we have set up some of our investment that takes a regular deduction every month. So we call it the wealth builder or regular savings plan. So again, it gives you that disciplined way of putting money aside every month. And once you set up the plan, I mean, you go away and the bank does the rest. So again, you can see the discipline question coming in. And of course, bringing the RM and the investment advisors in there to keep helping you stay on the guardrail, right? Diversification, I think we can overemphasize that. Our CIO, or in terms of how they give us the information, the advisor is very well rounded in terms of where do you go to equity, in what measures, where do you go in bonds, in what measures, how much do you need to retain in cash, how much of gold, as Manpreet has detailed. And of course, protection. I think that's the subject that we don't discuss a lot. And really, when you think about the clan goals, the one thing that can upset those long-term goals is a risk event happening on the clan's own circumstance, like a life situation, like a healthcare emergency, right, or a demise within the family, something the breadwinner, not being there, that can really upset a lot of things. That's why we bring the insurance aspect. We partner a lot with Prudential, Sanlam, to look at how can we create a protection of the breadwinner, so that in case something happens, doesn't upset the overall long-term plan of the children getting to college, right? So these things we actually embed them, and we have created a very interesting way. I mean, our RMs have done a lot of good job, like where they look at coupons coming from the bond portfolio and putting those as premiums for insurance policy, for life insurance policy. So it becomes a really neat thing that the client doesn't have to cough any additional money from their pocket. This thing is like a seal, right? Yeah. So it's kind of very interesting, some of the ingenuity that we are finding coming out. And some of these are ideas clients are creating. Some of them are ideas that we are creating. But that we are trying to play it again and again across the
Paul, can you expound on that just a little bit? That little creative thing that you talked about. So you said you used words that I need to be able to connect. You said bonds and then being able to attach it so that what could happen. Just go.
So a bond gives two payments, which we call a coupon in a year. Okay, so if you have a January and a July, a February and August, like that. So every year a bond pays twice. So
there's some money that's coming to you twice a year.
Yeah, exactly, to your account. That's the whole promise of a bond investment, right? And then on the other side, an insurance policy requires you to pay. You can set that to be twice a year.
Yes,
as well.
Right.
So if your coupon comes in January, say of 50,000, then you have a policy of 50,000 or 45,000. It's really nice.
It does it. So you don't have to look for extra money to sort that out.
So you got an investment and you got protection.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You mentioned insurance and you mentioned the word life. Investment, the volatility of markets sometimes, yes, can be a threat to life. However, what protection is given in a situation where it is not so much that you have gone on to the next world, but your means of earning has been challenged and you no longer have it. Is there protection for that?
Yes, there are. So all our life insurance policies come with critical illness, permanent disability cover, and embedded. And they are free riders. You don't have to pay extra to get that. It comes as part of it. And when we have conversation with the insurance companies, we negotiate for that because we are looking at it from a wealth management tool. So we actually recognize, yes, you may be incapacitated, and as such, then you need the policy to pay off for your medical expenditure at that time, or you have a critical illness. And secondly, after that, the policy, the premiums that need to be paid for that policy to last the whole term are taken over, so you don't have to keep paying again.
Yeah.
So we put that as part of our policies.
And if your job comes to an end, are there insurance policies that look into that as well?
Okay, I'll take that as well. So we launched, during COVID, we launched a retrenchment cover because we saw the risk of people losing jobs. Unfortunately, it didn't do very well.
It couldn't have. I mean, COVID was unprecedented.
Yeah, it was unprecedented. So we've really been looking at the data around that and just seeing in what way and form we can, bring a product that take care of the client's inability to make payments. However, when we come to the loan side, where we have given a credit to a client, we recognize that if they get on the basis of their pay, we recognize that if the pay the job is not there, then the ability to pay the loan also is not there. So we have a protection against that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Manpreet, when we talk about wealth, I think we've come to the place, and this has been great because, like I said, over the last 6 or so weeks, we've been at least getting a little bit more and more conversant, and being comfortable to actually say the word wealth. But unfortunately, we're still in a place whereby somebody talks about wealth and you think, oh my goodness, if I'm going to be talking about wealth, then it means that I must have a mansion sitting in a corner of some leafy suburb. I must drive 2.0 luxury vehicle. I must be able to, vacation somewhere in some sandy beach. For a lot of us, that is what, wealth means. But I'm hearing us now talk about wealth that when you have put away something or when you've invested and then you're able to then grow something that will allow you to depend on it in the future, does that also equate to wealth?
Absolutely, it does. And I think what's important, I think there was some great examples you gave, right? Wealth means different things to different people. And wealth could be a mansion, but wealth can also be the ability to comfortably fund your kids' education, 20 years in the future.
Right.
So I think it comes back to the point about saying, defining that goal up front, and also saying, look, just the ability to sort of put some capital aside and sort of see it grow and help, tangibly achieve those future goals for yourself and your family and for people around you. That can be a great sort of example of, having wealth. And I think that's where, it comes to the factors and brings to a lot of things we discussed today, whether it's about, thinking long term, whether it's about having the discipline around it, whether it's protecting, that wealth. But I think really sitting down with a financial advisor and saying, look, this reaches to different sort of parts of the wealth space, different parts of what a bank can do. But it's really about sort of stepping back and saying, what do I really want to achieve?
Right.
What's important to me and my family? And then, how can the whole wealth process really help achieve that? It's not just the cars or the mansions. It can mean many, many different things which don't fit the common definition of wealth.
Absolutely. So you can create it, which we've spoken about. You can manage it, which we've spoken about. You can grow it, which we've spoken about. But one thing that we haven't talked about as much is protecting it. I mean, what am I going to do? I've put it in a fund. What am I going to do to protect it? I don't know. If the whole market crashes tomorrow, there's nothing that I can do. So when we talk about protection of wealth, how is the person whose money is being kept aside, when I come my RM and I say, well, let's see how are we protecting and what policies are put in place or what practices are put in place to ensure that what you have created, grown, managed can now be protected?
Yeah. So I'll take that and Manpreet can add. So the aspect of protection get embedded into the way we actually get into the business of managing your wealth, and diversification is one. So you actually start looking at how do you protect your wealth against a specific or a market event. See, for example, what you said, a crash in the stock market, right? So interestingly, and history has it, like the moments when they've had like a market crash, it is out of that a significant amount of wealth is made.
Right.
I mean, look at 2008, 2009, the financial crisis. Look at COVID. It was a period when while there was a crash, the rebound was amazing. So the ability to diversify the portfolio and also the ability to keep you calm and help you ride that wave to come out to the other side is one of the areas. Of course, from the life perspective of the investor, the insurance comes there. And also we look at also the property side, because remember, part of the wealth our clients have is in the property, the houses they have, the cars they drive, and the content that they have in their homes, right? We also have insurance for that, so that of course, if your house burns down or something really happened, floods, in Kenya that has been there, that's a significant part of your wealth. If it's swept away, then really takes you quite far back. The ability to have an insurance policy against it, and again, we create that ability within our overall platform, is amazing. It's a way of protecting wealth, and we can go on and go on. The last bit I want to speak about is protecting your wealth as it moves to the next generation. Do you know one of the biggest area where wealth gets destroyed is at the transfer stage? You've done a fantastic job to create the wealth, grow it and all that, but can it see light in the next generation? So our ability to put the right structures to house that wealth so that it outlives you is also a way of protecting your wealth.
Talk about these structures, please.
Okay. So, and I know in the past we've been here with a lawyer to go through the legal structures of how to contain wealth. But essentially what we are looking is, do you have a will? The wealth that you have require maybe a trust? Okay. Do you have businesses? Is your wealth in businesses, and maybe what you require is a holding company? Okay, so that it puts the various businesses into place as a holding company and the shareholding thereof, so that the wealth can be able to transfer to the next generation. We also think about where, in terms of geography, do you actually hold the wealth? So as a bank, we have started a couple of years back. We started the international banking, meaning you can bank part of your wealth. You can bank it in Jersey, in UAE, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, India, China, right, and of course in Kenya. Creates diversity. So again, you're looking at geolocations and saying, wow, maybe the level of my wealth has reached such a level where I actually need to be banked in multiple jurisdictions.
Right.
Again, how do you approach that so we can be able to help you as well?
I think at the center of this entire conversation would be how we communicate to the clients to understand all this, because I want to get to a bank that understands me. I want to be a client to someone who would sit me down and guide me through which is the best way to invest, which is in terms of diversification, which alternatives do I have. And for a very long time it has been seen as though it is all about bring your money, we bounce, but here is a question where you're sitting with an individual who's taking you through the processes, through the policies that are there, in terms of let's make wealth for today, tomorrow, and even forever. So in terms of just addressing these, what makes you stand out?
So maybe Manpreet, you can start
sure.
off. Yeah.
I could start on that one. I think you use three really good words, right? And I think it's about being present throughout the entire journey. So a lot of what we discuss about discipline, about long-term portfolios, I think it really comes to that today, tomorrow, and forever, being present all the way. And I think the second part is really about acknowledging the fact that many of these decisions can be emotionally quite significant. And the way we address them is to really put more of a framework that helps establish a bit of discipline around it, saying, look, it is sometimes scary when markets are volatile. It is sometimes scary when you think about, the big questions about intergenerational wealth transfer. But I think a lot of the two sort of topics I discussed earlier, one is about just, educating oneself. It helps reduce the stress and the worry. I still remember very early in my career, someone showed me a chart of, the big sort of financial crisis through history, right? And a long-term investor sort of said, 30, 40-year returns. They said, look at how much stock markets have made you. And I remember asking them, but what about 2008 crisis? What about a 1999 dot-com blow-up? And they said, look, on that long-term perspective, can you even see it on the chart? On a 30-year horizon, it frankly didn't matter. If you just went away on vacation for 6 months, your portfolio did fine. But it comes to the point about, being aware and putting sort of events when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
So being able to add that context and saying, okay, in my framework, which helps establish discipline so that I don't respond entirely with emotion, what's the decision? Is the decision that maybe I should do something about it? Maybe the decision is I don't need to do anything about it. What does it mean for my today portfolio? What does it mean for my tomorrow portfolio? What does it mean for my forever portfolio? Is this impact my ability to fund, kids' education in 10 years' time? Actually, a lot of short-term volatility may not impact that at all.
Volatility of markets and economies is a big thing, especially when it comes to whatever you're going to put aside, invest. So how does that come into play? I mean, I want to look at the African continent as a point of reference. every time we have an election, for example, outgoing administration, incoming administration, there's volatility, and people are saying, okay, if we're going to put some money here, do we wait until we have a new administration? Do we wait until this one goes out? So this is actually a question that's coming in from some of us this morning, and it's, how does then market or economic volatility, political volatility, affect the investments that one would put in? And is this a conversation that you continually have with your RM? Wake up in the middle of the night, hey, the vote is coming in, what are we going to do about this money? Are we going to move it, kind of thing? How does that work out?
Yeah, I think what we've actually realized is that, of course, the economies grows through cycles, and that becomes one of the things that our CI office really look keenly to see at what stage the various economies that we are tracking, at what stage are they? Are they expanding? Are they, coming off? And interest rates has to do a lot in terms of how the central banks manage, that into the economy. But interestingly, on the political side, we find that the political events are very short-lived. Yes. They don't play into the market a lot, interestingly. And I know there's quite a bit of research that the CI office has done around that. They actually don't play short-term, yes, and they feel like, oh my God, right? But really, the markets quickly forget those political events and keep moving on, because markets are generally driven by the overall fundamentals in the economy, as opposed to specific political events.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great example of how history can really add a bit of perspective. So 2 examples, right? I mean, US elections, that's a big political event. We're in the midst of that transition. But if you look back over the past century or so of data, actually, once you go beyond the 2-3 months around the election, it's pretty hard to discern the impact of the election on financial markets. They move on pretty quickly. It's fundamentals that matter. A second example that's one of my favorites is South Korean equity markets, because that's a market which, unfortunately, over the past 3 decades has had to deal with almost an unending series of fairly significant geopolitical events. But what you see in equity market data is, other than creating maybe a month or 2 of volatility, markets have again quickly moved on. Now, every now and then you do get the more significant one, but I think it's really about acknowledging markets do have a much narrower view of the world than what matters to us at a broader level, and learning from history. I think those 2 factors are what we try to add from the CIO office, just to make sure, whether it's the end investor, whether it's the RM, that we're equipped with the perspective. So we're not making a decision just on short-term emotion, but we're disciplined, aimed at the long term.
Indeed. So Paul, getting into 2025, we're still early in the game. Just a reminder in terms of a couple of things that we should remember or think about coming to Standard Chartered, talking to an RM, or just saying, hey guys, here I am and I want to be able to do something. Which way are we going?
Yeah, so again, visitors, any of our branches, we have RMs in all our branches, and they're equipped to handle this conversation to get you started. Or you can email us at wealth.kenya@se.com, and we'll be able to pick it up from there. Yeah, absolutely.
What if I don't have an account with you right now, and how do I get
Easy. Same way, just, visit us or email us, and we'll get you started. The good thing is we get to open your account digitally as well. So, a very easy process. And to get you set up for investment, again, technology comes very handy. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And just one final one, because where it just seems as though folks may feel as though, I may be financially illiterate, and I say that I do not know where to go, I do not know what to do, and I don't want to present my ignorance. But then in terms of how comfortable folks would feel to be able to be sure that with whatever situation that you are in, somebody can help.
Absolutely. I think, as we say, we communicate in public, but we advise in private. And that's our role, that's our fiduciary duty. We treat every conversation with a client in confidence. So, and we really encourage our clients to come and tell us exactly what they are going through in terms of financial, what their goals are, so that then we can be able to have a very robust conversation and plan for them. It's like a doctor conversation on a patient, right?
Yes.
You're going to have to tell the doctor how you feel.
Tell right? everything that's going on.
Yeah. So then they can help to make you feel better. So we believe we are the financial doctors. Come talk to us, regardless of what it is and where you are. Really, that's where we start, and in fact, that's our job. That's how we are trained to do. We are trained to help our clients become better from a financial perspective.
Absolutely, and it's great to have had both of you here this morning. Just getting into 2025, what you can actually do and the options that are available for you. Manpreet Gill is the Chief Investment Officer, Africa, Middle East and Europe for Standard Chartered, and Paul Njoki is the Head of Affluent Banking and Wealth Management Products, Kenya and and East Africa. Thank you both for being here this morning, getting us into 2025 proper, and the things that we can do and how you can create, grow, manage and protect your wealth getting into the future. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you for
very
having
much.
us.
Asante, and definitely those conversations must continue. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. 3 suspected serial fraudsters who attempted to swindle one of their victims with 1.2 million fake US dollars will be detained for 5 days to allow police complete investigations. The 3, Rafael Ojiambo, Samuel Ayako and Wilfred Gitonga, were nabbed along Nyeri Road on board a private vehicle while handing over a safe containing the fake dollars in exchange for clean cash. Following their arrest, the 3 were arraigned in Milimani Chief Magistrates Court, where custodial orders were granted for their detention. The Kenya Police Service team in Haiti has handed over the 3rd forward operating base to Guatemala team. Now, the facility, located at the regional office of the Far North for the General Inspectorate of the National Police in Haiti, was previously abandoned following gang attacks in the area. On 28 November last year, the Multinational Security Support established the FOB at the IGPNH to secure the coastline and surrounding areas. The facility has since undergone extensive renovations sponsored by the International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs. This simply means that the Kenyan Police Service are doing a good job in Haiti. The family of a woman who died after being shot by a man believed to be an army officer serving at the Mutongwe camp in Mombasa County is crying for justice. Mary Teresa died while receiving treatment for gunshot wounds at the Coast General Referral Hospital in Mombasa, 15 days after the incident that led to her being shot. Teresa was shot while she was at her home in Mawechere Likoni after a man believed to be a police officer at Mutongwe camp allegedly opened fire indiscriminately. Here's Teresa's father, Evan Sotino, and husband, Mark Omondi.
Risasi ambayo ilipigwa hapa kwa tumbo na ikatokea nje, na hiyo ndilisikia hiyo risasi ndiliharibu tumbo lake mpaka male yote ilikatika katika kipande.
Zile marisasi yasemekana zilikuwa risasi za KDF za jeshi, ambapo saa yule DCI ambao aliokota zile risasi alisema hii risasi naijua, hii risasi ni ya kwetu.
According to the family, the autopsy report on Teresa will be released in 3 weeks' time, and they're afraid that this will deny them justice.
Siku ya mwisho yule DCI naye kupigiwa simu akasema yule aliyepigiwa bunduki tayari naye ametuacha. Kuanzia hiyo siku hawajai piga simu wala wakipigiwa hawapokei.
Kuna kitu ambayo inaendelea hapo yenye sielewi ni nini, kwa sababu postmortem ikifanywa inatakana ripoti ipatikane leo ama kesho, lakini hii imepelekwa mpaka mbali wiki 3. Kwa hivyo wanapiga hesabu hiyo wiki 3 itapata kama mtoto amezikwa, maneno imefinika hapo.
Mombasa County Police Commander Peter Kimani has, however, said that investigations are ongoing.
Now will be subjected into inquiry because the person who was actually who is suspected to have shot this lady was also a mob justice and passed away.
A 22-year-old man in Nakuru County is recovering at the Level 5 hospital after being shot by Kenya Wildlife Service officers. It is reported that Eliud Ochieng was shot in his left leg at around 6 p.m. last evening during a protest outside Lake Nakuru National Park over the disappearance of 31-year-old Brian Odhiambo.
Hii Nakuru National Park iko kwetu Kivumbini Manyani, unaona imesurround hivi. Waamue hata sisi kama society au vile tunavua juu wanatusumbua, vile tunavua watu 50 watupe kazi. Tuache tu kutusumbua. Enyewe babuni zao zinatusumbua huku nje, nyatuui. Ngiri zinatoka zinaishi huku nje na sisi hatuui. Ona. Mimi nasikia vibaya. Ona mulike ni mguu, amenimalizia mguu. Mimi niko na familia na mtoto mdogo.
Sasa leo tukakutana pale vijana. Mapolisi wakawa wamemwagwa
pale chini kwenye fence pale penye mlikuja jana kuonesha nini Brian alichukuliwa hapo ndo tulienda maandamano rudishe wapi Brian pale. So unajua ile kati ya polisi na raia lazima, kwa sababu wako na sheria zao, sisi ndio tunataka mambo yetu. Sasa unaona ile utofauti kukakuwa na ile vurumai kidogo, kukakuwa na ile protest. Sasa wakati wa protest unajua kuna paka watoto pale wanapiga tu live bullet, paka zingine zilikuwa zinachapa mchanga, unaona mchanga inalipuka hivi, nyingine paka imechapa ukuta ikalia kama chuma. Sasa within that process ndo ndugu yetu hapa amepigwa risasi ya mguu.
Mimi na ndugu wangu ndo tuna support mama yangu. Sasa hii niko mimi sina baba. Kwa ndugu wangu ndo tulikuwa tunasaidiana na yeye kusupport my mom. Sasa hii nimebaki hivi solo, mimi ndo kijana mdogo. Mimi ndo kijana mdogo, wameniacha hapo hivyo na mokoro. Sijui nianzie wapi.
That's the news wire. I'm Lea Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Are you a young person looking to unlock your potential? Are you ready to take the future in your hands? If so, then listen up. KCB to Jejiri is the plan. It's designed to empower young people like you, develop skills and knowledge you need to succeed in life. KCB to Jejiri combines vocational skills training, business development training, access to finance and business mentorship, preparing youth for jobs, entrepreneurship and wealth creation. Don't be left out. Visit kcbgroup.com/foundation to learn more.
Are you ready to become Kenya's next biggest music star? Do you have what it takes to compete with the best and walk away with over 1 million Kenyan shillings in grand prizes? Auditions are open for Kenya Star Search on Saturday 1st of February and Sunday 2nd February at the Nairobi City Charter Hall from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come through and show us what you're made of. Proudly sponsored by Skiza, Techno Kenya, Sunlink, Wairimu Kenya and Boomplay.
All right, a few minutes after 8 o'clock, and let's see what traffic looks like. It's still a little bit busy on the Thika Superhighway as you come through towards Survey. It's where you'll see the busiest of it, and it's bumper to bumper through towards the Pangani underpass. You'll get out into the city, Muranga Road, then heading towards the CBD, pretty busy, and also on Limuru Road as you come through towards this other side of Parklands, and in the other direction coming from Gigiri, that's busy as well. Lower Kabete, Spring Valley, very busy, and we're looking at traffic on Jogo Road for the first time in a long time. That's pretty busy going towards Landis at that junction. It's busy as well. Langata Road is picking up. There's something going on the southern bypass, not quite sure what that is, closer towards the Likoni interchange. So let's keep an eye out on that and see what's happening. It's in and outbound for some reason. Eastern bypass busy as well as it is on Outer Ring, and Kangunda Road will be busy for a while. We know that. We're going to keep an eye on all of this, and let's talk on Spice FM. KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, it's 8 after 8 o'clock, and we're into the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this morning. And as we get into it, there's certain issues that we'll be looking at. But first of all, let's talk about how the fact that we are able to match skill with opportunity with the 2GHV program.
Yes, and skilling, matching skill with opportunity through the 2GHV platform and the KCB Bank is actually one of the ways that they are trying to solve problems, especially our surrounding unemployment in the country, which you're talking about 1 million plus of young people entering the labor market, that is ages between 18 to 34 entering the labor market. And KCB says because it is a problem, we have a solution. We'll not just talk about it, we will offer solution. And one of the solutions we'll do is we will recognize these young people who have skill and upskill on what they already have, take them back to school, ensure they have certifications to be able to present that, to give them credibility to be able to ply their trade. Mastermind. And KCB Foundation says that it is actually going forward in training them, making them be entrepreneurs, SMEs, macro and micro economies being created. And they say for you to be able to get this information, kcb.com/foundation is where you go to apply, go through a rigorous process, being vetted, getting paired with the best institution that will match up with your skill and make sure that you are A-OK for the market.
Fantastic stuff. And our guest this hour is seated. I like talking about the fact that some people are not strangers to the Situation Room, or strangers to this land that's Kenya. Reuben Kagami, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
How are you doing?
How are you?
Believe it or not, I'm actually well.
You have not changed your sitting position.
No, I haven't.
The last time you were seated, Ndu has changed.
Well,
Ndu has changed.
There must be a reason.
Well, you know what they say, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. So,
it still sounds
something.
French or German. They came from the Luyas.
Something.
Yeah.
How are you, Reuben?
I've been okay, and as okay as a human being could be.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to have seen a new year. I mean, many didn't.
True.
So,
True.
Yeah, I count it a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we introduce people, we say who they are, and then we give their title. The title we're giving you, or where we are today, is Presidential Aspirant 2027. That's a future thing.
That's a description.
That's a description of a title.
That's not even a title.
It's a description of what you will be doing.
It's a goal.
Oh, okay.
An intention.
You can be defined by your goals and intent.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's neither here nor there because it's not dependent on me. It's dependent on
Kenyans.
The Kenyans, the Constitution. If I'll be there in 2027 myself, so a lot of contingencies there.
There's signs that you might not be.
Oh, well, do you ever imagine that you could not be?
No, I don't.
That's actually the first mistake a lot of us make. You think we're here forever young, No.
Reuben.
Okay.
Reuben, you're being fatalistic.
No.
We plan for the future.
We do.
Not
absolutely.
knowing what it holds, but we still plan.
For it.
And so part of what we need to plan for is our absence.
Yes.
That we don't often plan very well. But,
Point well made.
And everyone needs to plan for their absence, actually.
Okay.
For your own good and for the good of your family and for the good of society.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think those will be all intertwined
The politicians in particular need to plan for their future.
Well, because it always comes after every 5 years.
They always seem like they'll be here.
I think this will be all intertwined into conversations that we will have today. But let's welcome you to today's conversation properly with the proverb. And Siti will tell you where that's from. And you can tell us what you think about it.
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the Republic of Rwanda,
where my namesake comes from.
Yes,
you're Kigame, he's Kagame.
Kagame ni kadogo, Kigame ni kikubwa.
Oh, sawa basi.
It's the same. The prefix
Polebas.
You can
Ngeli ni
handle the prefix.
kivi.
Okay.
Ni vigame vingapi hapo?
Vigame viwili.
All right. Nchi ya Kagame.
Sawa. The most extensive land is the human belly.
Literally so, I guess. The intestines that we don't see much are pretty long. I think the large intestines would be like what? About 5 feet long.
Yes.
And the small intestines would be another 10 feet maybe. All in that tumbo. So 15 feet, even if you were to just, let your ugali get lost in there, it depends on how much ugali you eat. But there is a sense in which the tummy houses a lot of unknowns. And that's why some people equate like what? Corruption. Where I come from, say unagula. You eat. So in Kenya, the that belly could, so for some people, it takes in quite a bit, huh?
Right.
Onagula sana. Yeah.
Okay. So it is extensive. And I think when CT gave this morning, I said, probably we're not even talking about the belly. It's just literal. It's not literal. But makes sense, isn't it? Especially in the worlds in which...
What did he think?
What did CT think?
Yeah.
Well, he'll tell us by the end of the show.
He's a philosopher.
He'll let us know.
I think this is a subject that relates to greed.
Yeah.
Me too.
Ugula.
Yes, and it's
corruption.
And its insatiable nature.
Absolutely. And when an African gives you a proverb, it's never quite the hare and the hyena. They're always talking about human beings.
It's about the tortoise and the hare.
The Rwandese there are basically talking about greed.
Indeed. All right. Okay, so I mean, we talk about goals and intent, Reuben, and let's just talk about, first of all, we've seen you be quite vibrant on different platforms speaking about certain things, whether it was abductions, whether it was a flailing economy, whether it was gaps in governance according to how you've seen it, and you've gone as far as to say that Kenya is on its knees, and one of the only ways to be able to sort it out is that the president must step down. You've said this.
Yeah, and I couldn't unsay it until he does it.
Okay.
But I need to qualify that beyond talking, I've been on the streets myself.
Yes, you have.
In June, I was on the streets of Eldoret with the young people. In fact, right before the storm of Parliament. When Parliament was being stormed, I was in Mombasa leading the bunch there. I've been on the streets with the doctors. We walked from Kenyatta Hospital to Afya House. I've been on the streets in Migori with JSS teachers. I do believe and feel strongly what the Kenyans are trying to say through picketing and all those different things. So talking is one thing. I actually do believe that Kenya is headed in the wrong direction and we need to turn around. In fact, if you read some of my previous posts on social media, I used to say during Kenyatta's time, we were in...
which Kenyatta?
The first one, senior. We were in the hospital, in the main ward. In Moi's time, we actually went into HDU. And then during Kibaki's time, we went back to the ward. And after Kibaki, we went into the HDU again. And now we are in the ICU. And once you reach there, it's pip, 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 you're on very, very high dependency beyond what you can survive. And so I actually do believe genuinely that unless we turn as a country, unless we have that jacking situation, we're going to actually crash.
According to you...
And this particular government seems to be on rampage to crash the country.
Okay, to put the paddles on. So according to you, what are the markers or the indicators actually that Kenya is in the ICU? What do you see that gives you that conviction that that's where we are?
So the first thing is the economy, because the economy is the nerve center of any society. If you can't eat, if you can't go to work, if you close business, if you can't pay your workers and so on, there's not very much that you can do to survive. You would have to turn that around to actually survive. And what this this current government is doing is actually tightening the rope and saying, yes, you're dying, but just, die a little faster. Yes, it's tough, but let's make it just a little tougher. I've actually just looked at the projections for the 2025-26 finance budget, and we are pushing from 3.9 to about 4.32 trillion before even we answer the question of how we met the last one. I've even lost count because at one point we were dealing with a rejected 2023 budget and bill rather, and then we went into the 2024 one that had us going to the streets. That was suspended and then sneaked back through the back door In fact, I tell all my friends is that we're actually operating without a budget, because you don't know whether we are still using the 2023 one, whether we actually cancelled the 2024, whether we are using the supplementary ones that nobody seems to talk about anymore, or whether we are actually already projecting onto 2025-26, 4.32 trillion. In other words, if you cannot budget for a country, if you have no plan for how you're going to spend what you get, but you go on borrowing, you go on doing stuff as if everything is normal. So the real problem, the real manifestation is our economy. And like I've said, if your wife is unhappy, you don't settle it in the press. So if your children are hungry, there's no way you can hide it, or it's not a public. You go right back to the drawing board and take care of things. The second thing that is a manifestation is the abductions, which is a constitutional violation. It's a violation of international, rules and regulations that we have signed on to as a country. It's a violation against the right to life. And so abductions bother me. They bother me so much that the other day, when I went to the streets to protest in Eldoret, I realized I was surrounded by like 25 policemen, basically stopping me from saying don't abduct. Meaning that we need to go back to actually the anatomy of this thing called the abductions. And the other thing, of course, is that whatever we get, we spend badly, so we steal. That Rwandese barely takes it all. And so corruption is a bad disease. In fact, that's going to probably crash the economy faster than even all our discussions on whether we have a finance bill or not. But overall, really, it is whether this is a legitimate government or not. In my opinion, extremely illegitimate.
Reuben, what makes it illegitimate?
Oh, everything. The way you get people into government, the way you look at institutions, they're supposed to be independent. The executive controls everything. Parliament, the legislature controls the judiciary. When it comes to issues like court orders, there are people who believe they're above the law, so they don't obey court orders. The ordinary mwananchi is supposed to adhere to the law. The inspector of police and all these guys, I'll go when I want, dahikadeda, kind of thing. And so when you think about the Kabogos and you think about the opposition being brought into government and so on, you're running a country without the people's blessing, so to speak. And so what has happened to mark the illegitimacy is that this thing we call social contract, because every society operates under what you call a social contract. You agree that we will allow you to lead us if 1, 2, 3. Now, if you break trust, you become illegitimate.
Okay.
And that is what has happened in this country. People, are sworn in, by force or by association, and they purport to lead us to serve us, but they don't. Instead, they oppress us, so they need to go.
Reuben, if you spoke to the president today, and he's made this statement over and over again, we're fixing this country, is what he says. Number one. Number two, there is no convincing the president otherwise that what he is doing, him and those people that have been put in positions or appointed, that what they're doing is actually in the way in which they see it, the right way to go. How is it convincing the president that actually it is not? Because if you were to speak to him or to anybody in a position of leadership, they'll tell you, look, this is the policy that we've taken on, and we feel that we are doing the right thing. It may hurt a little bit, but we get to the point whereby the sting of the needle will be gone and things will be all right. How do you convince anyone otherwise?
I'm so glad the way you phrased the question. If I was to speak to President Ruto today, what exactly would I tell him? And I want you to follow me very closely. This is what I would tell him first. I'll say, Mr. President, you and I graduated from university in the same year. 1990 to be precise. He went the direction of YK 92 and all of that. I went the direction of multi-party democracy. So we went two different ways, but that's not the issue, although consequences are there. I would tell him, when you and I were at the university, you were at the University of Nairobi, I was at Kenyatta University, systems worked. He knows that, I know that. We had food in our dining halls, we had hostels, and when you had like the double intake that he and I were part of, you had all these constructions going on that we call prefabs. So extra hostels were built before the students were admitted. Everybody had a place to stay. We had three meals. We had full breakfast, we had lunch, we had dinner, and food to spare. And so on top of that, I don't know whether City, you know something that was called boom. You were given a sum of money.
Why would I not know boom?
All right. So we were boom.
And I was a recipient
You
of
were a
boom.
recipient.
City bought his first car with boom.
I'd be surprised. Probably a big stereo. But so the students had some money. Call it pocket money or whatever.
It was more than pocket money.
Yes. So that system worked in this Kenya. And so fast forward now, and you're given a chance to be the president of Kenya. The first thing you ask is, what is it that made those systems work that we can borrow, or how can we make this thing work for the people? And so instead of, going on rampage, signing every deal possible, just making every wrong decision possible, I would say that's not how we were brought up. That's not how things go. You think of people first before you think of yourself. And I guess that's the major difference between President Ruto and I, that he's going into YK 92 and they're buying elections. They're minting money. They're printing money. And distributing in order to win an election. We are fighting for people's rights and inclusion and all of that. Democracy is a big difference. Now, the other thing is we're sort of like 9 months apart in birth. I was born in March, he was born in December. So we're roughly Rika. And so I would tell President Ruto, people my age have no qualms about what people say about them. People my age do not have sleepless nights because a cartoon was drawn about them being in a coffin. It's like City today ukiniita mbwa. I don't automatically become a four-legged creature.
No. Neither do you even imagine that you are one.
So, and I've been called different things.
Why on earth would I call you a dog?
Well, why on earth would you imagine that people don't call each other dogs?
Yeah, but there are so many other animals to choose from.
Oh, wow.
I'm waiting for the one
Which one do you prefer?
Snake.
So, in the end, the implications are grave. It's that the anatomy of abductions, for example, works like this. You made me angry. I'm going to get you, and I'll do the maximum damage to you. But you're talking about somebody the age of my child. So it's like fighting with a toddler. So, and even for argument's sake, if age and the fact that Ruto has children, I have children, these parents have children. So let's even just get past that, because how you treat my children is how you should treat your children. So, supposing that there is a real problem. So, the young people in drawing a cartoon have messed up. There is a constitution, and there is a plethora of articles in the constitution that tell this government abductions are a no-no. Whether you're just dealing with, Article 29 or 25, Article 49, 50, how you even arrest somebody, you should identify yourself, should tell them why they're being arrested, you should give them a right to appear, with a lawyer, you should not detain them more than 24 hours. All these things are in our constitution. We haven't even touched the freedom of conscience, belief, and opinion in Article 32. We haven't touched on the freedom of expression in Article 33. We haven't even touched on the freedom of media in Article 34. So just this plethora of articles and directions. Even Article 37 says you can picket, unarmed, So if I'm carrying a bottle of water and a phone, how dangerous am I? And I'm just saying this finance bill is wrong, or we do not want to be taxed. So what you should do is go back to your CSs and so on and listen, analyze, what do we do? You don't come and pick my child. Hold them in Comunicado for 32 or 34 days. I have no idea where you took them. And it's only by pressure, because we've been pressing so hard for them to be released, then you make all these mock releases. But you're releasing maybe 4 or 5. The institutions of justice and so on are counting over 82 missing persons since June. So it's not just these 4 or 5. We want to know who is abducting our children.
All right.
And why on earth in Kenya with this constitution is this happening in 2024, actually from a while now.
What would be different if it were you, presidential aspirant 2027? We're going to take a break at this point. Reuben Kagami is our guest this hour, and we're looking at some of these things. We've painted the picture of the problem. I mean, not just painted. A lot of people are living in the reality of the problem, Reuben, from what you said. And so now here we are saying that there's a need for different kind of governance, a different kind of leadership. And also from what I'm hearing is that, perhaps there's something there that you would like to offer, and what would that look like? Let's take a break and we'll come back and look at what some of those things are. Reuben Kagami is our guest this hour. We're going to take a break and look at weather and traffic. Don't go away, we'll be back after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with Spice FM.
And the weather this morning, Nairobi with highs of 27 degrees and lows of 15 degrees. And in Mombasa, highs of 32 degrees and lows of 25 degrees. In Kilifi, highs of 31 degrees and lows of 24 degrees. In Nakuru City, highs of 28 degrees and lows of 12 degrees. In Nyeri Town, highs of 27 degrees and lows of negative of 12 degrees. And we cross the borders to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, highs of 25 degrees and lows of 8 degrees. In Mogadishu, Somalia, highs of 30 degrees and lows of 23 degrees. And in Kinshasa, Congo, DRC, highs of 31 degrees and lows of 23 degrees. In London, United Kingdom, highs of 5 degrees and lows of 2 degrees. In New York City, highs of negative 7 degrees and lows of negative 11 degrees. Pretty cold in New York there. But in Paris, it is a little bit warmer than New York, but still very cold, highs of 8 degrees and lows of 2 degrees. That is the weather this hour.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
All right, quite some traffic still on the Thika Superhighway as you come in from Kasarani out towards Garden City. That flows for some time, and then you're going to get past the Outer Ring Junction, heading out to Survey, bumper to bumper, obviously because your service lanes come to an end, and then you're going tunnel literally through Pangani. Now is when we see traffic on the on parts of Uhuru Highway, and it's coming in from that junction of Aerodrome on one side and Bunyala on the other out towards Haile Selassie. It's very busy on Waiaki Way this morning. We have a number of spots where it is bumper to bumper, so watching that as you get out into Westlands. And then on Gong Road, we're seeing some traffic, then spilling over into the CBD. That smidgen of traffic is now increasing on the Southern Bypass. We need your shout outs in terms of what is going on there. If you're on the Southern Bypass and that traffic in and outbound, interestingly enough, happening there, do let us know. Coming off of Magadi Road, heading in from Rongai and then out onto Langata Road. There's some traffic here today, and Langata Road then leading towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout with some touching on Raila Odinga Way. On the Eastern Bypass, there is some traffic, bumper to bumper indeed, getting to the North Airport Road junction and then out towards the Cabanas interchange. So we're watching this morning. Do talk to us on Spice FMK, EONX, hashtag The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
Reuben Kagami is a presidential aspirant 2027. But apart from that, he's a man who's seen certain things happening in the country, and he's saying, no, guys, we cannot be going this way. One of the things that you seem to be looking into quite fervently is the Constitution. No emotion, no if, buts, and maybes. From what I hear you say, Reuben, this is the supreme law. If anything, we should follow what the law says. You don't have to romanticize it. You don't have to do anybody a favor. Just follow the law.
Yeah, but I need to define why I want to be your president first. I want to be Kenya's president because Kenya needs a philosopher on that seat. Somebody who can think through issues. Someone who can take decisions on the basis of priorities. Someone who can say, you have these two options, there is a third way to go. This dichotomy thing is not the answer. Life is not just either or. In fact, if you were to accuse me of something, I would be what you call a trichotomist on the very minimum. Okay. There is always a third position. Mm-hmm. For example, in any legal case, you have an agreement between two people. You still need a lawyer to witness it. And so it's not the Republicans or the Democrats. It's not so much Kenya Kwanza versus Azimio. That's how the West does this two-horse race thing. There is always a third way or more. Mm-hmm. And so Kenya needs somebody who can look at, should we have the expressway or should we have cycling lanes or walking lanes? Because, for example, the city of Nairobi has more people walking than driving. You need somebody who can say, we'll put the money where there are feet walking. Mm. Okay. Yeah. And so if you had a situation to choose between whether you're going to increase food production and or you are going to invest in green energy or whatever the case may be, besides being something that is multifaceted, you take the one with the highest good for the people. And so every time I am asked, when you make me your president, not if, when you finally make me your president, the first thing I would have to think about in any decision, is it for the good of the people? Will it improve the lives of the people? Because I'm here for the people before me.
All right. Reuben, we talk about where we are today. You say that the constitution is not being respected, but let's look at each and every institution, because the president pretty much is surrounded by institutions who have intentionally or have been directed and have ceded the power that they have. When we talk about our parliament, for example, it is an independent institution who ought to run their affairs as Parliament of Kenya. Talk about the police. Police is it is a service. It is a commission, ought to operate itself in a way that is independent and serving the republic. Now, here we are, a situation where we see all these institutions, like Kenyans keep saying, they have ceded their power. Yeah. How do we sort that out? If you were president today, or if you had an opportunity to talk to the president, how would you do it differently?
So if I had an opportunity to talk to the president, I would say, get out.
Simple.
Yes, because this is not what we asked you to do. All right? I mean, every job has a job description. Mm-hmm. And the job description of Kenya is the Constitution. In fact, we go even a step further and say we swear by the Constitution and the Bible. So if you're not going to respect the Bible, at least respect the Constitution. If you're not going to respect the Constitution, then at least respect the Bible. But beyond these two, it's actually what you are pledging to do. Imagine a doctor being hired that decides, I'm not going to treat people, I'm going to cook instead. That's not the description of a doctor. So if we hire you to serve the people of Kenya, and you swear to do that, you actually swear before maybe 100,000 people as witnesses, and then you do the exact opposite. So the issue is not lack of constitutional provisions, lack of the law, it is the fidelity to that law. And that is what we hire you to do as a president.
As the president, what would be your move in terms of ensuring that individuals who are heading these institutions actually play by the book? Because the IG finally has said will appear in court, which is a good thing. But how would you ensure that each and every individual serving in these positions, in all these commissions, actually get to do their job? And as president, you give them the power to do so.
So the first place you look is not other people. The first place to look is yourself. You see, if you are the highest officer, if you're the highest servant in the land, then you must lead by example. You cannot tell people, for example, this is what I'm going to do for you, then you renege on it. You can't tell people no more abductions, for example. Then the abductions happen, you even deny them. You behave as if nothing is happening. You can't say, we have cancelled the financial bill 2024. Then you sneak it under the table. Once you do that, you're a con man. Absolutely. How else do we describe you? If you tell me, I'm going to give you 500 shillings.
Yes.
Then it comes the time to give me 500 shillings and So what has happened is the executive has abused power and literally, taken over the legislature, taken over the judiciary, taken over all the institutions. In fact, it's no longer a discussion whether we are going to spend this much. Nothing is being debated. The president says it's almost like Trump's executive orders.
Yep.
Nimesema hivi na hivi ndio itakuwa.
Okay.
Reuben, I'm listening to you and you sound very much like the president when he was campaigning.
Which president?
This one. Yes, because
I told you.
You're talking about the things you will do and it's all theoretical. The president told us and made promises, they were theoretical. When he became president is when we were in a position to judge whether what he said was actually going to happen.
Listen, the difference between Ruto and I is what we do with promises. So let's first of all...
Reuben, you haven't been president yet.
So. Well, I have just kept a promise. You asked me to be here at 8 o'clock. I was here.
Well,
so you make
this particular president also keeps time, just for information.
Oh no, okay, fine.
Yes.
Let's all keep time.
Yes.
And then what will he say? Please give me more time. That's what all his all his people are saying. Give us time. So let's stick on the question though. The issue is, don't make promises you know you are not going to keep. In fact, if you know for sure you don't even intend to serve the people, don't offer yourself for that.
Reuben, consider for a single second that when someone makes promises, they have every intention of keeping them, and then they are sent to the position that they desired and suddenly find that the things they said they could do are actually not possible.
They actually can't do them.
Yes. Or even if they can, not quite in the way they said.
No, I do agree that even the road to hell is painted with a lot of good intentions. But we are not headed to hell, okay? And the second thing is that everybody needs to be judged or gauged by how they have lived. And so you put yourself forward saying, test me this far. And that is what we don't do to our leaders. We assume that miracles will happen when they get into office. And all of a sudden, demons will become angels. And those who have been murdering people will actually end up, respecting life. If somebody has been stealing in previous appointments, if somebody has been lying to you before, if you put them in office, that will not quite change. In fact, the evidence you have that somebody has mismanaged or has been adversely mentioned is your red flag for not bringing them close to power. Wait. So the illegitimacy of this government begins with appointments. So what would I do different? I would appoint people into government on the basis of merit, on the basis of track record, and on the basis of whether or not they are people of values.
Are you saying this government hasn't done what you're saying?
Absolutely. They've done the exact opposite.
Do you have examples?
I do have examples. So if I was to give you the example of someone that has just been brought into government that was heading the Ministry of Health. When we had COVID, we had an issue with KEMSA. Afia house became a mafia house. So if I was given a chance to hire into government, that is somebody that would not come near me at all in terms of serving the people. Because there are questions to be answered, there are reports yet to be implemented about, for example, what happened to KEMSA. If someone has been, bad-mouthing Kenyans, insulting Kenyans, calling them names, and so on, you don't bring them into government. You keep them away from government. The point I'm trying to make
Insulting
is that
Kenyans,
values,
them in manner,
values are everything, CT. Character is everything.
Can you tell the character of somebody before they take this position? And I'll tell you why I'm asking this question.
Okay.
That unfortunately, we've been told that, somebody could be, solid, worth their salt, and make their intentions known about what they want to do should they be given the position. But somehow, I don't know if it's the Kool-Aid folks are drinking or what happens when they get in there, but somehow things change. How can you be sure that Reuben Kagami today, when you're saying you will do 1, 2, 3, that you will not also go and partake of the Kool-Aid? It may sound like it may sound like a mockery of a position, but we've seen this historical experience over and over and over again, that the things that you say, the way in which you purport yourself, after the fact somehow changes. Or was that person just like that the whole time and we didn't know?
The only way you can gauge somebody's character is by looking at the past and not the future. Because you have data. If you hired me and I was unfaithful, I took, a couple of thousands off the account. You cannot say, okay, let's just give you a chance. So indeed, there is no way to measure the future. But
Actually, there is, Reuben. There is.
We do have the benefit of the Constitution, for example. We have the law. So the issue is, to this extent, how has anyone been with regard to the fidelity to the law?
Reuben, I find it strange, though. The information that you speak of, every presidential candidate will tar the opponent or the person that they're competing with a fairly dark brush. And it's the way politics is. And some of what is said may be true. Some of them may even not be proven. Some of them may be anecdotal. However, how do you blame a presidential candidate for making promises which, as you say, are spurious, and people know or hear and yet elect them? Was anybody forced to elect the president?
And I think as well...
Who was forced? Who is it that was put in chains and dragged to the polling station to cast a vote for this particular person?
And at that point, City, as in terms of who forced, majority of registered voters voted in the government, which makes it legitimate.
Yes.
How do you oppose it? And why?
You guys really sound like you don't live in Kenya.
We do, actually. We do.
So here is the thing. We know, for example, that in the last election, more than 8 million people did not vote.
Of the registered ones, yeah?
Yeah, registered, did not vote.
They chose not to.
Yes, they chose not to vote. And the reason is they did not have a candidate.
How do
we don't know this, though.
Well,
how do we know?
I mean, it's all over social media. I did not vote
social
because...
Social media is not a reference point for the truth. It's a reference point for opinions.
Oh, that's an opinion too.
Yes.
But, and so here's the thing. If I tell you, I actually did not go to vote because I did not see a candidate to vote for. That is a fact. And the fact will be proven by by me not voting.
But if I give you a reason, I think that's what actually proves the point. If I say that I have not voted this time because I didn't have a candidate, and because the candidates that I see there have 1, 2, 3, then it gives a reason as to why they didn't vote.
Exactly. So,
and do we see that? Do we see that?
So the question is, why was there a Supreme Court, discussion on who won the election?
Because somebody took a petition forward, and in this case, it was the one who lost.
So, in other words, there was a dispute.
Yes, the one who lost.
So, wherever there is a dispute, people are saying that there are people who probably voted, for a candidate that they didn't actually vote for in the first place. But back to the issue that I was talking about, we are actually dealing with values, and there is a way to measure values. And that is by looking at somebody's track record, looking at somebody's consistency, and so on. And while you cannot maybe gauge how I will behave in 1 year's time, you can use my past and consistency or record that I have to decide this person I can trust. This one,
not
maybe.
So
Reuben, I'm at odds with you on that one for the simple reason that I would rather wait to have someone elected so that we can actually see. Not
they're what they're
yes,
sold.
No. This prophesying and looking into the future. No, I say this because the narrative that seems to focus on blaming the economy and everything else that has gone wrong on the president is it's a narrative I actually don't believe in, neither do I subscribe to it. For a simple reason. The citizenry of this country are the sovereign. They elect leaders who don't represent them, and then they do nothing about it, and then blame the president, who is the head of the executive, for doing something that anybody in the executive anywhere in the world tries to do. They try to control their parliaments. They all do. Now, if Parliament cedes their authority and gives the authority to the President, how is it the President's fault?
And it is why when I asked that question earlier, the President is surrounded by institutions. Parliament is one of those institutions. National Police Service is one of those institutions. The judiciary is one of those institutions with clear-cut independence as espoused in the Constitution. The citizens are sovereign.
Dennis and City, we are all surrounded by institutions. And there is nothing really exotic about being surrounded by institutions. It's what we do with those institutions.
True. Very true.
Mm-hmm. If, for example, I am supposed to take a law or something into Parliament for consideration by law, this is what it says that this is what it will do. This is what Parliament is supposed to do, for example. Then, as we are doing that, I come and threaten my people. Let me see who will not vote the way, tutaonana huko. So you begin to introduce a different component, and that is the abuse of power or abuse of office. You threaten, literally. So if you were to look at, for example, where we are now as a society, we have everything in our constitution that says abductions are not to happen the way you don't arrest you don't kidnap somebody. All these Subarus that are being talked about, it's not, the police are even saying we are not the ones doing it.
Reuben, but we're in agreement there. There's no parallel universe in which abductions are good or correct. There's no parallel universe where the killing of citizens is correct. There's none.
City?
Yes.
That is very well said until you hear Oscar Sudi speak. You live in a country, City, where people,
why is there so much focus on this one person?
Because he basically says something that is contrary to what you just said.
Yes,
and then you have somebody saying, if I had a chance to kill 5,000 Gen Zs, I would kill. And, these kinds of...
I don't think he said that. I don't think he's the one who said that, but I get what you're going with.
I'm saying that it's not just Sudi.
The caliber of the speech that we hear is along those lines.
In a country where abductions are a no-no, where you actually say no more abductions, and we list for you 1, 2, 3, 82, okay, and you can't show us who is abducting our children, and you can't show us where they're being held, and you cannot tell us where all the missing people are. You can't tell us, these bodies from the quarry, whose children are they? If you can't do that, if this is not your priority, if human lives are not your priority, then you are an illegitimate leader.
I have to ask this, though, because I think oftentimes, we wallow in our worry in circumstances where things are, bad, economy flailing, there are holes poked in leadership. But then sometimes we fail to answer the question wholly, that who is a leader? And I'm not talking about the person of Dennis or the person of Reuben. I'm saying, what characteristics should we look for in a leader? Because that essentially is the panacea to all of this. That, okay, fine, who should we be looking for? Is it the person who's going to solve the problems that we see today, where we see infrastructure underdeveloped, where we see children who are not in school, where we see a health system that's in a shambles, where we see so many things going wrong? Is it the person who's going to come and fix us? Because anybody can fix, right?
No, not anybody can fix
No,
it.
seriously. Yes, you can. Somebody can show up to work in the morning and do the 8 to 5, fill the files, get it done. Anybody can fix it. If you just say, this is your job, get it done. Anybody can fix. But the person who is going to lead, what characteristics should we be looking for? Because essentially I think that would answer the question that we seem to be so worried with.
No, it depends on the institution, because every institution has characteristics demarcated for what the leader of that institution is supposed to do. If I was going to look for someone to lead the health sector, for example, I would look at someone like CT and say, he has worked for Kemri, or he has worked, in this space, so he's probably fitted to lead the health sector. There's no way I can take City, who is maybe so skilled in health, and then take him, to
environment.
Environment, you might even survive.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Sorry, Reuben. I need to qualify the question so that we don't go off. Reuben, allow me to qualify this properly so that we don't go off. I think the bigger problems that we see, and at risk of time running, the bigger problems that we see today are a conglomeration of smaller issues of things that are not done, right? But what I'm saying is we are saying there's a problem in leadership. So what should we be looking for to say this essentially is what is going to solve the problem?
It's all about values, Indu. Values are everything, and values are what you cherish most. Values are the priceless things that drive what you do every day. So our constitution in Article 10, for example, tells us every institution of government should have these values. Observe this. Even when making decisions, you have to look at this. That's what Chapter 6 is all about, that if you are going to lead Kenya, then you must be a person of integrity, etc. In the public sector, Article 232 tells you exactly what values to expect there. So values are everything. And values everything, not just in government. They are everything in the private sector. They're everything in the family. If you are somebody's husband and you're looking at the neighbor's home, badly, you are violating certain values.
Right.
And so even in government, we must prioritize values. And my mantra right now, if I was to leave you with one word to fix where Kenya is, it would be character is everything. I would like to see character-driven leadership. Let us look at who a person is before we entrust them with a public office.
I'm sorry, Reuben, but at that point, I think it's a great point to end on, and our time runs out. But it's a conversation that we must have further, and we'd ask you to definitely come back again so that we can talk about these things a little bit more. Reuben Kagami, aspirant for president in 2027, but also one who understands that we need values. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Asante, 9 a.m.
Good morning. This is the news wire. Amla Obaga. All employee affected by the dissolution and declassification of parastatals will be absorbed into the public service. State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed says no state corporation functions will be lost in new reforms. The cabinet yesterday approved sweeping reforms that will see 42 state corporations considered to have related or overlapping functions merged into 20 agencies. Some of the 9 state corporations include Kenya Film Classification Board, LAPSET, Corridor Development Authority, Kenya Fish Marketing Authority, Center for Mathematics, Science and Technology Education in Africa, which will be dissolved and their functions transferred back to the parent ministry. President William Ruto is set to continue with the development tour of the Western Kenya region. Ruto is expected to draw crowds of people in Kwesero today, together with a host of top government officials, including Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, and a host of others. Ruto began his Western tour on Sunday in Bungoma and is set to spend the rest of the week in the region in what is seen as a move to ramp up support for his re-election bid after falling out of favour with the vote-rich Mount Kenya region. Late lawyer Judy Thongori will be interred today in a private ceremony attended by close family members. This will be done after her memorial service, which will be held at Nairobi Chapel, Ngong Road at 10 a.m. Thongori passed away on Tuesday last week after a short illness. She had been flown to India for treatment, where she passed away. A confrontation between 2 butchery attendants that was triggered by the loss of meat ended tragically when one of them was fatally stabbed in Rwandan Market, Migori County. Police said the two were blaming each other for having reported to their employer about the loss of meat at the butchery and a slaughterhouse where both the deceased and the suspect had been working. Police said Geoffrey Ouma, of the age of 35, was stabbed to death by a suspect known to him, adding that the suspect later surrendered to Rwandan police post and has been processed for arraignment. Tension remains high in Misalaba village in Malawa, Kakamega County, after irate residents descended on the homestead of Mavala Township Sublocation Assistant Chief and set houses ablaze. The residents accused the chief of colluding with some villagers to kill 2 suspected livestock thieves in the early hours of yesterday. Reports indicate that the residents retrieved the bodies of the 2 from Malawa Hospital before proceeding to the assistant chief's home, where they carried out the destruction.
Na nimekutana kwa njia na watu wengi, potapota wanasindikiza pickup ilikuwa na mili 2. Sasa mimi sikuwa ninajua nini inafanyika, lakini wakati nimeenda kidogo nikaambiwa hiyo maneno inafanyika kwa shemeji yako. Sasa nikaokopa, hakuna vile ningekucha saa hiyo, na nikatafuta dada yangu nikampigia simu, nasikia watu wameenda kwako, wamechoma manyumba. Police were aware that this thing is going to happen, but they took no action.
Kwa leo nimeona kitu ya kuhusunisha sana. Tumekuwa hapa hospitali, watu 2 wameuliwa. Hao watu walikuwa wachuruzi wa ng'ombe, na ilikuwa kitu ya kuhusunisha sana. Kidogo kari katoka huko wakachukua hiyo mili, wakakuja naye paka kwa sub chief kwa Poma. Leo tumefika hapa kwa sub chief, wameweka hiyo mili hapo imelala, nyumba zimepomolewa, nyumba imechomwa.
Sisi tuliabitu ya kwamba hao walikuwa wachuruzi kwanzia tu kitambo, na wakaanza kusema tunwezi tunwezi, ni sio wezi, hao ni wachuruzi wa kitambo. Ndio tunashangaa wameuawa, watu wamechukua mang'ombe.
And finally, Public Service Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi was conspicuously missing during the first cabinet meeting of this year held at State Lounge in Kakamega. The meeting, chaired by President William Ruto, reached a series of resolutions, including the merger of 42 state corporations into 20 as a cost-cutting measure. All of Ruto's cabinet members except Muturi were present at the meeting. When asked whether there was a compelling reason for his absence, Muturi replied with a simple yes, without expounding. On January 12th, Muturi appeared to have broken ranks with the government when he held a press conference at the Serena Hotel in Nairobi and called for a national dialogue regarding alleged abduction of Kenyans and blamed the government for having a hand in it. That's the news wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Are you a young person looking to unlock your potential? Are you ready to take the future in your hands? If so, then listen up. KCB to Jejiri is the plan. It's designed to empower young people like you, develop skills and knowledge you need to succeed in life. KCB to Jejiri combines vocational skills training, business development training, access to finance and business mentorship, preparing youth for jobs, entrepreneurship and wealth creation. Don't be left out. Visit kcbgroup.com/foundation to learn more.
Are you ready to become Kenya's next biggest music star? Do you have what it takes to compete with the best and walk away with over 1 million Kenyan shillings in grand prizes? Auditions are open for Kenya Star Search on Saturday 1st of February and Sunday 2nd February at the Nairobi City Charter Hall from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come through and show us what you're made of. Proudly sponsored by Skiza, Techno Kenya, Sunlink, Wairimu Kenya and Boomplay.
Traffic.
All right, at a few minutes after 7 o'clock, traffic is still heavy on the Thika Superhighway and it's coming into the CBD. As you get towards Murang'a Road, that will slow down some. Not too bad before the Outer Ring Junction. I want to skip over to the Southern Bypass and have a look at what's going on there. So that seems to have cleared up, so no cause for alarm, at least not anymore. That is sorted, probably just your early morning Wednesday traffic here and there. On Jogoo Road, still busy as you go towards Landis, but that whole area around Rakuluma has been cleaned up, so yay for that. Coming in from Aerodrome, heading onto Huru Highway, that little stretch before you get to Haile Selassie is quite busy. Langata Road taking on some traffic, but not too bad, and a little bit of what was left off of Langata Road goes towards Rilo Dingaway, but that is okay as well. Look at the Eastern Bypass, says that traffic will fizzle out in no time, so this is good coming out of traffic hour early this Wednesday, but we're going to keep an eye on all of this because it could all change in the twinkling of an eye. All right, let's talk Spice FM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94 point.
Wednesday morning goes really quickly when we're already into the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation for this morning. And thank you for being here through it all. We're getting into an AI technology conversation. So, you know, one of your favorite things to look at how the world essentially is changing and how you're able to match one to the other. And we're going to be having that discussion in just a bit. But as we remind ourselves about how other things are being matched, skill, training to opportunity.
Yeah, and we talk about skill, but let's go back to the problem. Over 1 million young people getting into the labor market annually. But with that, KCB saying we have a solution to that. Let us upskill these young people. Let's make sure that they get themselves into institutions, the TVETs of this country, and have them certified. And we talk about certification, CT. Certification.
CT certified.
CT certified.
Yeah.
It's normally a form of a paper, okay? It isn't a qualification. No. It's just an authentication of that qualification. And why it becomes important is because there are bodies within the country whose mandate is not just to train you, but to authenticate your training, and by so doing, telling whoever it is who comes across that certification that this person can actually do what this particular documentation says they can do, because we have seen them do it and we're now writing it down so that you can read it for yourself. See? And it opens many doors for people who want to garner some work or get into some business, because your word alone or word of mouth alone may not necessarily be sufficient in all cases. It could be, but it helps.
Right.
When you have that documentation.
Yeah, and when you talk about all that, we talk about numbers now. Created 150,555 jobs, as well as trained 35,195, incubated 10,954 youth, 267 million shillings have been disbursed as loans to support the enterprises, and issued 2,225 startup toolkits to them, and trained 6,535 businesses on financial planning. All this information, kcbgroup.com/foundation.
Fantastic stuff happening. And then also looking at how the world has changed over the last few years when we talk about AI. AI, in this case, is not your neighborhood guy who's found out that he can use certain initials. It's artificial intelligence. And that forms the basis of a conversation that we have this morning. And our guest is already here in the Situation Room. Dr. Emmanuel Okeleji, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here with you this morning.
Welcome. Dr. Okeleji is the CEO of Seamless HR, and you'll be telling us what that's all about. But this morning, we're having a conversation about how AI can be used in workplace management. It's interesting because you always have that picture of the mean HR lady who's standing at the door with a ruler.
Why must it always be a lady?
It just always is. I don't know why. I don't know why. Yeah. Okay.
City certified.
I don't know why. But hey, let's welcome you to the proper Situation Room style. So CT goes around the I have to tell you this every time. CT goes around the continent every week. You're not allowed to ask us how he does this because, you know, he's got his ways. He's certified after all. And he comes back every week from a different country with a new proverb. 6 a.m. Monday, he'll be here. So this week, he'll tell you where he is, and then he'll give us the proverb. You tell us what you think about it and how you would interpret it. We're already giving you work to do, you HR people. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
okay,
fine. Let's
super.
do it.
Okay.
Well, we are in the Republic of Rwanda, a very unique country. Unique in that if you look at the gender parity within its parliament, you will find that it is probably one of the most representative with regards to women on the continent. If you look at the societal norms that they have, it's yesterday that Ndu was telling us that in Nigeria there is a car-free day, meaning on that day you dare not drive. The other activities you're supposed to be engaged in other than driving, like cleaning up your neighborhood, what have you. Now, this particular country is also one of the cleanest. Now, if you have a day, say in a month, where every citizen goes out to clean, that country is going to be clean.
Okay.
Yes, it's going to be clean. You know why?
Let me keep quiet.
There are people who represent others when it comes to, mucking up things. if I'm responsible for cleanliness in my neighborhood, and there's some individuals who I know muck up, they'll do it once or twice.
You
Third
will not
time,
muck up again.
man, they'll be told, excuse me, chief, you, yes, go somewhere else because you're messing up this neighborhood.
Muck up your compound.
Muck up, in fact, go away. Yes. Anyway, the proverb. The most extensive land is the human belly.
That's deep. So, and it's belly, like not mind or art. It's belly.
It can be whatever you want it to
stomach.
be.
Belly.
My interpretation of it would be that there's so much complexity about human beings that you can't just judge a book by its cover, and that human beings are very complex and very rich. That's how I'll interpret that. Yes.
The beauty about interpretations is we can't fault your interpretation. It's how you see it. We were of the opinion that this proverb refers to greed. But it doesn't detract from what you've said.
Indeed.
Because greed is one of the unique aspects that human beings have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Indeed. Okay. So, well, 1,000 points to you. You can do with them whatever you please.
Okay.
Cash it in. I don't know, buy a house or a horse. But look, into the conversation that we're having this morning on AI in workplace management. I mean, AI has almost become buzz term now. Anything you do, AI. Somebody told me yesterday, I need to send a message to a group. I'm gonna go type the thing in my AI whatever, and I'll get the message. I don't have to think. I don't have to put in my opinion. It has become the thing that guides almost everything that we do if we're in that space. And maybe now we're saying that it can be applied to really any situation. AI can design your home, can design your living room, can design your roads. And now here we are saying that it can also help in workplace management. Give us an overview before we get into the details.
Okay, so thanks again for having me. I'll start by just a quick, hopefully we can talk more about that during the conversation, a quick summary about seamless HR and why we are talking about AI in seamless HR. So we're a tech company that builds technology for companies to manage their human resources, what we think is their most important resources. So, and it's end-to-end, everything from hiring to onboarding to performance management, leave management, payroll management, everything that HR does, we just automate that and modernize it. And would use whatever technologies that are cutting edge at the time. And AI is cutting edge technology now. And we do that work across now 20 countries across Africa. We really are passionate and focused on Africa and sort of helping Africa build its most important resource. And, I hope the conversation goes there. I'm really, really passionate about Africa. And there's a real reason why we're doing what we're doing. Now, but the AI side we're still in the early days of AI. And I personally believe that AI will revolutionize the world the same way electricity, for instance, revolutionized the world. And if you think about electricity, it works in different things. So there's electricity in this room for light, there's for sound, there is for video, there is for a lot of things. But when electricity started in the early days, it wasn't that ubiquitous, if you like.
Yeah.
And that's what AI is going to be. It's like computers have now gone to a level where they have intelligence, where they can read, understand, interpret, and communicate, which wasn't the case before. And so AI is the next frontier of technology, and certainly we are still very, very, very at the early stages of that journey.
Right. I think about it, and just from the things that you said, because now what computers are able to do is that they're able to read, they can, visualize, they can hear and communicate. But it seems as though there was an element of humanness that was introduced into this technology that allows it to do that. Because essentially, a machine is doing what you would have to do as an individual or as a human being. But then now we're saying, okay, let's take that burden off of you, put in that element, code it into this machine, and then allow it to regenerate after that. Essentially, that is the DNA of what AI is, right?
Correct.
So then many folks are asking, okay, well, why don't we just do it as human beings then?
So the thing about AI is like, and you're right about that sequence. There's a training that happens to the large language models. Like you have to train the AI, and it's human beings that train the AI. A lot of training for ChatGPT, for instance, was done in Kenya, and there are problems with that because then if you have the human perception still gets in, and you find that even you find some AI hallucinations happen. AI hallucinations where the AI is giving answers that don't make sense. You have AI that is biased because the trainers have sort of biased it to think a certain way. Now, but the advantage of AI is just the fact that human beings are not ubiquitous. Human beings cannot be everywhere. There are ways that we can generate light in this room, but electricity just takes it to another level, right? So AI, for instance, is capable of doing the work of multiple human beings at the same time. So ChatGPT 4 is more intelligent than any human being. Like the speed with which it can can ramp up capacity, the computing capacity is significantly faster than what one human being can do.
Right.
So it's about taking us as a race to the next level. It's about making us a lot more efficient so that we can get more value out of the material universe, literally. So, and to your specific question of why can't we just continue to do it as human beings, I think as human beings are on this constant race to be better, and AI is sort of like a cat that's out of the bag now. There's no stopping it because we're now on this, and human beings are going to put all of their genius to it. There've been risk people have talked about, which hopefully we can talk about as well, because there's a risky bit of all of this. I think the last thing I'll say is that this year's Nobel laureates, most of them got their laureates on the work that they do in AI. The laureates in chemistry and physics, a lot of that is because of the work they're doing here. So the smartest people in the world are caught on to this one, and it's a trend. There are many trends that came and went, NFTs and all these things, but AI is not like that. This is here to stay.
Now, Emmanuel, we talk about AI as a solutions provider to all this, but AI itself comes at the backdrop of heavy coding that is involved in it. There is also the back end, which is support and security in these as well. And as you've mentioned, for us to have AI that is working very well, there is training that goes into it so that we precondition AI to work best based off what we've told it. But what stops a good mind, a good brain from hacking into your AI and just having it confused? And here we talk about security of these AI in making sure that we get the best out of it. How do we, if we are in early days of AI, how do we deal with that problem?
Yes, it's a real problem because, like any tool that human beings have invented, there are good actors and bad actors. And AI is like a gun, for instance. A gun is a tool that can be anything that, in the hands of a good person or in the hands of a bad person. And so we are very worried about the potential for bad actors to capture AI. But the thing is, we're still very early days in AI. And luckily, the amount of investment required to build these strong models puts that responsibility in the hands of very few. And the advantage of that is that you can sort of manage at least the foundational models. And governments are getting involved seriously with regulation. People are taking the security side of this very seriously. And hopefully, just again, like the internet, I've used electricity as an example. The internet too is embedded in everything from WhatsApp communications to video communication to like everything now, to even cars and maps and all these things. But when the internet started, if you remember, it was just dial up. You can only visit some websites, whatever. Now it's on mobile. You can do so much with it. But we ask ourselves, do you actually know the foundations of what goes on when you use the internet? Like what's actually happening? How does this communication? What's the back end?
Yes.
Some people have laid the fibers that makes you be able to go on internet and log on and whatever. So that fiber, the wires have been laid for AI right now with the large language models, with the large companies that are investing in this foundational work. And if you remember in the early days of the internet, for instance, you get a lot of spam mails in your mail and all these things. Now you don't get that many spam mails again. It's not because it's not because of anything that you're doing. It's because the people who've built the strong foundational infrastructure have put in a lot of technology. There's way more spam emails being sent. You just don't get them.
You don't get them anymore.
Because they've built in security into it.
It's like, governments tell us all the time. Just yesterday, do you know how many terrorist threats have been contained? It's just that you don't hear about them anymore. So what does that mean? That security on another level has been ramped up so that you're getting, notifications on time. You're getting to understand the character of some of these things, so then you can now ramp up your security, right? I guess it's the same concept when you look at it like that. Now, when we're looking at this technology, establish that, and we can see what it's being able to do. Like you said, still early days. It's unfathomable what then the world would look like in the next 20 years, for example. But now here we are, where we are in a workplace, right? How then can this technology be applied where the element of human resource is the star of the show?
So you allow me to sort of come home to Africa. And so Africa has about 18% of the world's population. But Africa's contribution to global GDP is less than 3%. So you find, and besides just human...
May I just pause?
Yes.
This 3% thing, I've heard it very often. How exactly is it measured?
A simple way that they measure it is just even GDP, the gross domestic product of Africa versus global GDP.
That's how they measure it?
Yes. And we know that those measurements are, there's a lot of things that's just unfair, because that's not the right way to measure the impact of the continent.
Sure.
So the 18% is a measure of our contributions to the diversity of the world. There are other things, like, for instance, 33% of all the gold in the world is in Africa, 60% of all the platinum, and all these other things. So Africa actually has a lot more that it contributes to the world beyond the human resources. And the other thing that I'll touch on that could be a little bit controversial is that this measurement is done in USD. This is a currency that we cannot print. So we have all this gold and all these human resources, and we give it to you, and you give us a printed paper that only you can print. And then you tell us that we're poor
because we don't have your printed paper.
But we are the ones who actually have the resources.
We have given that paper value because of what we have.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And actually, if you throw in the history and what it is that the plunder of this particular continent did in helping stabilize and create these nations that we refer to as first world nations, these nations who now, when we talk about GDP, we're talking about what it is, the gross domestic product of the individual. It was on the backs.
Yes, it was.
So anyway, the point I was trying to make has been made. Now continue.
Yes. Look, I'm extremely passionate about the Africa story.
Yeah.
And I was in London last week, and I'd not been in London for a while, so just getting back to the country, and it just hit me that this is a country that is in transition, that is now looking to redefine itself. To the point you were making, this nation punched above its weight. This very small island is dominating Africa, is dominating India, is dominating Australia, America. And so for hundreds of years, they're taking rent from all these places, and they've gotten used to taking rent from all these places, and now they can't take that rent any longer, and they now face the reality that they're actually a very small island. And part of that cockiness got them to a point where they say, let's get out of Europe and Brexit. Now they're a nation in decline, because they suddenly just now find out that they're not as powerful as they think they are. They don't have slaves any longer, or colonizations any longer. They can't extract value from everywhere any longer. So you will see that in their politics and the way they're changing leaders and everything, because it's a nation struggling. But let me bring it back to AI. Why did I go that route of, we contribute 3% to global GDP. Unfortunately, the world is structured the way it's been structured, and we have to compete. And what things like AI can do is to empower us to be able to multiply our contribution. Because AI, look at it as a superpower. That's how I say it. That human beings can layer that on their own natural intelligence and use it to get more value for the work that they put in. Because we need efficiencies in Africa. And if you're not punching to your weight, You need efficiencies. You need things to catalyze you, to help you leapfrog, to multiply your effort. And unfortunately, I worry that Africa will also miss the AI train as well, because it's expensive to participate in AI, and because we don't have the currency to do that, then we might miss out. So
actually, we do have the currency to do it.
Tell me.
You see, there's something that you referred to at the beginning. It's called human resource, and you are an example of that human resource. If you look at the African diaspora, that is a resource that other countries claim to be theirs and they enjoy. And they should, because choices have been made for people to live there. But if you are talking about the focus that the West has on this particular continent, even if you didn't know, they have already told you that there is immense value. Now, that immense value is what we trade with. We have the misfortune as a continent of having leaderships who miss the boat somewhere when it comes to this issue of ensuring that your citizenry benefit from whatever they have. But that is slowly being corrected on the continent, as we can see. So we do have the bandwidth for it.
Yes, I think I agree with you. And I think there's a nuance in how one looks at this. I think Africa is very wealthy in potential, but there's work to do to move from potential to reality. So it's like, it's a burden. You see a continent that has all these things. It's potential, but there's still work to convert. So there's political work, there's business work, there's personal work that we all need to do to convert that potential to actual reality, so that we can, because it's that reality we can take to the bank, literally. The potential, unfortunately, unconverted, cannot be taken to the bank. And so the work we are doing, for instance, it's like we feel that more Africans have to take this thing seriously. For instance, we do HR for companies to power human resources in like medium to large companies, banks and everything. And we're taking it upon ourselves to say African companies will not miss out on the capacity of AI to optimize their human resources. Because we have the response. So when I sell my software to a company, the company is, it's a trust exchange. They're saying, if I give you money, you give me technology to manage my people.
Yes.
If I'm not responsible enough to say, when these companies trust me with this responsibility, I have to make sure that they can leverage the most cutting-edge technology available. If I just take that money and I just give them the bare minimum, they will use the bare minimum. It's the same thing when we give trust to political leaders or any other person. If you're buying food from someone, you're trusting that there's no poison in that thing and that you're going to eat it and be healthy. And if that person didn't do the diligence to make sure that it was clean, then you have paid for something that hurts you. So I think that other business owners or other entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship is also a promise. You only pay for something that delivers value. We have to take that upon ourselves to make sure that we jump on the trend that is defining the future and give that to our people, our customers.
Right. Let's take a break at this point and then come back and look at really, okay, so what's the how, and how do we actually see this exemplified in some of the work that you actually are doing? And then how can we say, okay, this is working, this is a model that other people then actually definitely need to jump on. Dr. Emmanuel Okeleji is the Director of Seamless HR, and he's here with us this morning, and we're looking at essentially leveraging AI into workplace management, and then just also looking at technologies and how we can match that for our development through the continent, really. And those are the conversations that we're having this morning. A quick look at weather and traffic, and we'll be back with the conversation right after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with Spice FM.
At exactly 9:32, the weather in Nairobi, highs of 27 degrees and lows of 15 degrees. In Kakamega County, highs of 30 degrees and lows of 15 degrees. In Mombasa, highs of 32 degrees and lows of 25 degrees. In Nyeri, highs of 27 degrees and lows of 12 degrees. In Kisumu City, highs of 29 degrees and lows of 18 degrees. But now let's cross to the borders. Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, highs of 25 degrees and lows of 8 degrees. In Mogadishu, Somalia, highs of 30 degrees and lows of 23 degrees. We go to Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, highs of 32 degrees and lows of 27 degrees. But in Paris, the city of love, highs of 8 degrees and lows of 2 degrees. And in China, highs of 6 degrees and lows of negative 4 degrees. That is the weather. These are Good Morning.
Spice up your life.
Quick look at what's happening with traffic this morning. Coming out of traffic hour, not too far from now, but okay, something is still tickling the Thika Superhighway and then coming into the city. That's just round about Survey and then heading through towards the Pangani Underpass. But then you get onto Moranga Road and then you'll be fine getting into the CBD. A little bit of traffic right around Globe Cinema at the roundabout. As you come out of Westlands on Waiaki Way, I think we're fine. Just a smidgen of traffic as you touch on Chiromo, just a little bit. And then also on Uhuru Highway, just past the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, seeing some traffic there. But I think we'll be okay. Other than that, we're stepping out of traffic hour, not too far from now. Through the morning, talk to us as we still attempt to keep things moving through Wednesday. Spice FM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
All right, so continuing with that conversation, Dr. Emmanuel Okeleji is here with us, and we're looking at, okay, fine. I mean, it still takes some time to continue to establish what really this technology can do. So here we are when we're saying, with that understanding in mind, that I need to make sure at whatever level that whatever you're paying me for, I'm able to then deliver. But that beyond just the payment, that I have a responsibility to deliver that. So here we are with a technology that is still developing over time, and it's still going to develop, but many people are none the wiser. You give me something today and I'm going to think ChatGPT, for example, or AI is limited to that I'll be able to take a report, put it into a computer, it will generate something for me, and that's it. So the folks who are the practitioners of this technology then also have a responsibility to make sure that at this current time, everything that is available under that technology that anybody is leveraging money for, that you actually get. So now getting into the workspace at an HR level, what is it that then this technology can actually render to workspaces?
Yeah, great. So in our case, we start with like I start from ground up. And so things as basic as a company has employee handbooks, policies, there's a leave policy, there's a exit policy, and all these things. At a basic level, if you wanted to know about these policies, you go get a PDF and you read, or you ask HR. What artificial intelligence does is you put all of your policy in AI. Your staff can speak to an application and ask about policy and have an intelligent conversation with artificial intelligence. So it's not just spitting out a paragraph. You can actually say, what's the meaning of this? So how should I think about this? And literally chat with a bot about the policies of a company. And that instantly, make things easier. You can then go to the next level and say, let's say I'm reading about leave policy. You can then go to the next and tell the bot to apply for leave for you. And it can then go on and apply for leave on your behalf through Seamless HR in this case. And so that's an example of a use case, right? For payroll, for instance, the executive, now I'm talking from the executive side, can dimension the payroll data. I can look at my payroll and say, who's the highest paid person in the company? What department is taking most of our money? I can have a conversational engagement with my payroll software, sort of figure out insights into payroll. And because we at Seamless, like I said, we sit on hundreds of thousands of sort of payroll data. The next level would be that a company can then say, I want to be at market, like I want to be competitive at market. Help me understand how much I should pay people in all these various departments. And we are able to then look at data across multiple places and say, for your office in Nairobi, you should pay people in this department this amount. This is what the range is for industry, whatever. For your office in Uganda, this is what you should. Next level of AI could actually then say to you, what do you think would happen over the next 5 years? How do I prepare my people to be future ready? So that's AI can then pull information from different sources. Now the work we do in the kitchen, if you like, is to concoct the things that allows you to be able to interact with that level of intelligence. Now the challenge we have now is that's the thing I was saying about cost. especially at the early days of most technologies. So it's like when mobile phones came, the phones were a lot more expensive.
Yes.
But with time, the prices start to go down. Part of the challenge we have here is that AI is expensive. The AI tools, the computation that's happening behind the scene is very, very expensive. And they're dollarized, cost.
Of course.
And Kenyan shillings is probably one of the best performing currencies in the continent last year. But in other parts of the continent, the currencies are taking it.
Forget it. Really.
Yes. So it's been difficult because every of those calls that you're making is actually a cost to it. So if you have a company with 10,000 staff and everybody can call AI, the company won't be able to afford at scale that cost.
Okay.
So the work we're doing now is how do we make it affordable? So some of the functionalities that we have that we're just testing with a small group of people because we can't really scale this because we're still trying to figure out how to make it affordable for our customers.
I mean, Emmanuel, as we talk about AI and all that goes into it, I mean, it is expensive, yes, but at the back of it, for AI to be able to pretty much get the traction that it needs, especially in Africa, there is the issue of the data. We know data is big. How you use that data is another discussion altogether. But let's talk about it in the sense that as you speak today, companies like Meta, whatnot, are data manufacturers and sell that. As a company, how sure am I that you have put in place enough security such that my data would not be used against me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So a number of levels here, and luckily there are even regulations now that. So on the first level is that you're right. Data is. People just say data is in the oil and gas. I think data is the data. It's even bigger than oil and gas, way bigger. And there's just a lot of investments that people are making in data now. Massive investments. When I was listening to someone say he's investing $70 billion in building out data centers in Canada, close to because there's a lot of gas and oil in Canada. So you're sitting literally on a gas plant, and temperatures are good in Canada because these machines generate a lot of heat in one place that's cold and all those things. Some people are building data centers in the sea because they need cold temperature. So they literally bury those data centers in like the Arctic oceans and stuff. There's just a lot because we're generating so much data. Now, like all the charts that we're sending is data sitting somewhere. So much data that there are now laws that ensure that people are sensible with the use of data. So GDPR, KDPR, and the adoptions of that law, adaptations of that law in different geographies govern the work that we do. There's certifications that ensure that you follow certain rules. There are things that you cannot do. And some of these laws are enforceable. So if you break those laws and you betray people's trust on their data, then you're going to pay a price for it. Yes, you're in trouble.
For example, what is the Data Protection Agency in Kenya pretty much? What's the position in terms of the data that you have and the extent to which you can use it?
Yes. So, for instance, you can only use anonymized data. For instance, you cannot use people's personal information. You can't even also use people's information except they give you permission to use it. And you have a responsibility to inform people that you are using that data. All these things are boxes that you have to check. That responsibility is there. But the thing I see, and I would, if you don't mind, wax slightly philosophical about this. I think that when we were living in small villages and all of our lives, a person could actually live entirely all their life within maybe 2 kilometers radius. And everything they needed, they get. There's the market, you make a touch roof, small house, you can build it yourself, you can plant what you eat, you can hunt for your meat, you can raise your stuff. And you don't really need many human beings to do anything for you. You are largely self-sufficient.
Yes.
But we want this good life, right?
We want to eat lasagna.
I want to live, travel and fly and all these things. So we've told ourselves that we need these things. Whether we do or not is a different conversation. But the price we pay for a global world is that we're no longer self-dependent. We now depend on other people. So the food you're eating, you don't know who planted it, where it was planted, who made it. The clothes you're wearing, you don't know where it came from. The richest person in the world, Elon Musk, cannot make everything he consumes. So he has to depend on other people.
Others.
So the thing about globalization is this fact that we now have to share things from people. So it's like you have to trust that your doctor knows what your doctor is doing. You have to trust that your surgeon knows. You have to trust that your pilot knows how to fly a plane. Otherwise, you won't be able to get on a plane. The same thing with the responsibilities we carry for AI. And responsibility of law and governments and governance to ensure that people who bear this trust on behalf of the world are responsible. I'm not even talking about Seamless again. I'm talking about anybody who's responsible for AI. Lawmakers and the systems that govern the world needs to ensure, because we are going to have to trust people with our data.
At some point, yes, for sure. So, I mean, I want to come back to the examples that you've given about, so what you can actually do in a workspace. And a lot of the issues that came with technology was that the human, in terms of what they did with their hands, was going to be rendered obsolete at some time. I just think about the tea pickers when now the mechanized tea machines came about and they said, what are we going to do? We're going to lose our livelihood, So now I imagine if I can talk to a bot today and say, okay, Ndu, how many leave days do you have? And can I apply for them in the first quarter of 2025? The thing is going to generate, I go, right? Essentially, that's what we are saying. So he said, right now, I'd have to pick up the phone or send an email to HR and say, okay, what can I do here? What do I have left? Would the position of that person not be rendered obsolete? Because why do I need you if I can talk to a bot, for goodness sake? What do you need?
I think it's a very valid fear. And with every new technology, we've had to confront this. There are people who lived on kerosene and, this is how we made lights before. When electricity came, something happened, and every time technology comes, it does disrupt existing systems. But first, I think human beings have managed to survive. We've managed to continue to evolve because that's part of our evolution. I see it as an evolutionary thing. Unfortunately, we can't stop AI. So what do we do? And what I think we do is to ensure that our people can evolve, that people can then get and I had City talking, and I mean everybody was talking about training and certification and all these things. We have to train our people to evolve into the future.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll be left behind. So it's like, how can we now have HR that knows how to use artificial intelligence to increase the productivity of their company? How can we make a 50-man company operate like a 500-man company so that the productivity of that company improves? That's and it just lifts all the boats on the sea. Right?
Is it the responsibility, for example, of the offering technology, Seamless HR? Let's use that as an example. Does it then become your responsibility when you introduce the element of this new technology to say, okay, fine, it may look as though you, an individual, strong man, 20-man HR team, it would look as though we're trying to reduce the number of this HR team of 20 to 10. Does it become your responsibility then for those who introduce the technology to say, okay, guys, we're offering you this technology, but at the same time, we're not saying we're rendering you obsolete, but we're saying that you can actually uplift yourselves and give yourselves more and remain 20 people, but then be more efficient. Does that become your responsibility as well?
I see it as a collective responsibility. Yes, we do have a responsibility here. And part of the things that we're incubating now is to be able to have, because labor is relatively cheaper in Africa, to be able to have African folks join HR departments in other markets. So because you can do remote work. So we're launching Seamless in the US, and so HR teams in the US will be able to hire HR people in Nigeria to help strengthen their teams and scale. And it'll be great that the HR people that are hired in Ghana, in Kenya, in Uganda, know how to use AI. So while they might not be able to work for that bank in Uganda any longer, or for that manufacturing company in Kenya, they can then work for a manufacturing company in San Francisco or in Houston.
Got it.
So that's part of the responsibility we bear. But I said that it's collective responsibility, because there's a part where you can lead a camel to the water, you can, force it to drink. I think individuals, everybody listening on radio and TV today, we have to get interested in AI. This thing has come to stay, and I think it's a good thing for humanity. So we all need to spend more time watching YouTube videos on what AI agents mean. Just really educate yourself. Start from there, and look at how we know how to use the internet. I don't think of it as you have to go and read a big textbook or whatever. We can tweet, we can do all these things, but because we're interested, we'd have maybe 70-year-old, 80-year-old grandparents who are not interested. But if they were, they would be able to use it. So you can have a 30-year-old person who's behaving like 80-year-old grandparents when it comes to AI because they're just not interested. It's not hard. It's not rocket science. It's been simplified at the level at which we consume it, enough for us to be able to acquire that knowledge quickly and be relevant and move forward.
Why is it that on this continent, parents will do literally anything to ensure that their children get an education? I'm actually asking the question. Why? Parents will move heaven and earth.
Yes.
They'll starve. They'll do anything. Why?
I think that in my mind, and I don't think that there's any right or wrong. How I was responding to this question is that parents really, it's the means to an end. I think the end is what they're investing in. They want their children to have the tools to be able to have a better life. And we assume now that the way to have a better life is to go through school, graduate, get a job, and the sequence, as they say.
Yeah.
So I think it's that end that parents are saying, I want my children to be competitive so that they can get a job and do well in life.
Education has been equated with benefits, and there are ample examples everywhere that demonstrate that indeed it does. Now, when you talk about AI, and people haven't understood the benefits of it, because if they understood the benefits, and if it is a commercial enterprise, if it's an industrial enterprise, and you want to invest in the human resource, if the benefit is clear, the issue of the cost ceases to be a conversation.
True. Very, very true.
So, my question, what does seamless
HR.
Yes. What is it that you do to ensure that people actually understand how these processes benefit them?
Yes.
And take the word benefit and broaden it as much as you like.
Yes. I think part of that is this work that we're doing today. Just being and grateful to be on your show to talk about this and to let companies know that you can actually automate. And I don't do saying that if you want to apply for leave, you send an email to HR or call HR. We can have a conversation after this because that shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be. Not anymore. Not in 2025.
Yeah, not with seamless HR. So the whole idea is that we already have built this technology. I mean, we started seamless HR, long story, but off a pivot or something else 6 years ago. And in that time, we've raised $20-something million, $22 million to invest in this. Now, when I started my first tech company in 2005, there was no VC investments in Africa, and we had to raise little cash from everybody to build. But